Everything kicks off in a different world during the Daishin dynasty, right in the imperial palace. The emperor has passed away. The most clueless, rude, and overlooked son has taken the throne. Meet Tu Yi, who wasn't even supposed to be king. He only got this gig thanks to some shady politicians who wanted him in power. Scratching his head, the main guy wonders how he ended up as such a big loser. Clearly, he was transported from Earth, where he used to edit videos of girls dancing. Yeah, he wasn't a fan of that job. Then, a message popped up on his laptop asking which dynasty he'd pick to travel to. He thought it was a dumb question. He started a keyboard battle, arguing that the past was terrible. There were no sales, everything was tougher, and you could easily catch a disease and die. Plus, there were no girls dancing on screens. But now, sitting on the throne, he's starting to think this might be a joke. So he who despises this whole dynasty thing finds himself in a situation like this. But then, the bracelet on his arm starts glowing. A voice introduces itself as the AI system named Ben or Bengshin. The main guy is taken aback. Looks like he's not familiar with reincarnations. The system then gives him a pretty straightforward mission. He just has to let the clan dynasty fall apart completely, and then he can go back to his world. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl is curious about what this useless guy is thinking. Usually he smiles at her, but today feels different. Tu Yi turns to the side, wondering who she is and what's going on. In his mind, various stats pop up, and the system tells him she's one of his concubines, basically there to keep tabs on him. He can see the stats of anyone related to his mission. The system tells him her name is Xiao Shu, and she's basically there to spy on him. She's wondering if he's noticing something odd, or if he's looking at her differently. Rubbing his chin, he realizes this gorgeous woman is just there to keep an eye on him. But her allure is hard to resist. She's starting to think he might see through her hidden skills, since it seems like he's picked up on something. Out of nowhere, someone calls to him. The guy with long hair notices he seems a bit off and asks what's on his mind. Tu Yi realizes this guy is likely one of the traitors who helped him take the throne. Checking the stats, he sees the man has 94 intelligence and is the prime minister of the Qian dynasty. Clearly, he was part of the scheme to put Tun Yi on the throne as a puppet. Nearby, another minister, Zhao Zuo, has blood ties, power, and a lot of influence here, and he's also Zhao Shu's dad. While the girl tries to figure out why he's acting differently today, he's more focused on how impressive these guys' stats are. Zhao Shu points something out and asks if he's worried the throne won't be stable. Tu Yi replies that he actually wants the throne to be shaky, and that soon the whole country will fall apart. Jiaxu is surprised by his reaction to her father's challenge. Zhao Zhaoju mentions that the boy must be anxious since his brother Tusu, who should be king, is out leading troops. Tu Yi now sees why he took the throne and how these men are pulling the strings. Zhao Zu reminds him that they're breaking the laws and imperial orders by putting the boy on the throne. He knocks on the emperor's coffin, saying it's fine since it won't open and the emperor won't come after him. But it's a different story for Tusu, and besides, word of the emperor's death hasn't spread yet. He shows the Jade Seal and insists they need to act fast to ensure Tusu dies and joins the former emperor. Now, Chu Yi realizes they want him to use the Imperial Seal to order the whole country to kill his brother so he can keep the throne. Even as king, he'll still be a puppet for these two guys. It's pretty sad that the Emperor's most trusted allies plotted all this before he was even cold. But To Yi wants no part in this mess. Plus, he has a beautiful spy to handle carefully. He wonders what he's going to do about the whole situation. He glances at the Jade Seal in Zhao's hand and grabs it, thinking this guy won't control him like that. The man shouts at Tu Yi, asking what he's talking about. The protagonist knows that if he dies, the Qian dynasty will fall apart, which means he'll complete his mission. He places his hand on Zhao Zhu's face and declares that now that he has the seal, he decides who lives and who dies. Zhao Shu is confused. She never thought he'd be bold enough to stand up to her father like this. He challenges Gay Gears while she's scared by his boldness. Maybe his foolish behavior until now was just an act, and now that he has the Imperial Seal, he wields all the power. Zhao Zu warns him that he's getting too cocky, reminding him that he could easily put him on the throne or take him off it. Tu Yi just tells him to go ahead and kill him. He knows this guy has 77 martial points, making him an easy target. The man moves in, threatening to strangle him, while his daughter urges him to chill out. Just then, Tan Yuan steps in, telling everyone to relax since they all want the same thing. Tu Yi notices that this guy seems a lot calmer. To really get under his skin, he needs to escalate things even further. Shan Yuan is taken aback, and the Jade Seal drops to the floor. Right away, Zhao Zhu shouts, asking what he just did. Acting innocent, Tu Yi apologizes, claiming it just slipped out of his hands. He understands that this seal symbolizes the fate and power of the whole Qian dynasty. The Emperor, Dao, gives orders with it in this world. Breaking something like that is a huge deal, and he knows these guys won't put up with it. Seeing Tianyuan fuming, he feels like his end is near. But Tianyuan is using all his strength to just stand there. Zhaoju reaches out, but before he can say anything, Tianyuan cuts him off, saying His Majesty is just ordinary. Now that he's on the throne, the whole world is his, so a piece of jade means nothing. If it's broken, and it's not a big deal. Besides, it's getting late, so they'll talk about it tomorrow. With that, the two start to leave, but Tu Yi calls after them. He argues that the Emperor and common folks should be treated equally under the law, so he deserves execution. But they ignore him, and the scene shifts to a room where Zhaoju says they need to figure out how to deal with Qi Yi. Chen Yuan asks if he doesn't see the fallout from getting rid of the boy. Zhao Zu accuses him of being a coward while still calling that kid Your Majesty. But his friend steps closer, telling him to quit being stupid because Tu Su is outside with the troops. If they kill To Yi, they'll definitely be investigated and likely executed. Unfortunately, when the boy broke the seal, they lost their best bargaining chip, and now they can only count on his rise to the throne. Confused, Zhao Zu asks if he's saying Tun Yi broke the seal on purpose to stop them from killing his brother. Chan Yuan says he's sure of it. Before, they were fighting for the throne, but now that he's already king, it's better for him to get along with Tu Su. Plus, if they push the boy too hard, he might team up with Tu Su and bring his army to take them both out. That would totally ruin their plan. They'd end up facing execution, which is a risk they can't afford. Right now, Tu Yi is trying to juggle things to keep control over everyone. Zhao Zuo chuckles and says Tianyuan is overthinking it. That kid doesn't have the smarts to plan that far ahead. Still, Tianyuan points out that Tu Yi mentioned the emperor and the common folks are equal under the law. That line was actually from the old minister Weixing Lu a century ago. He climbed to the top alongside the emperor, but when he lost the emperor's trust, he ended up in pieces. Quoting that phrase shows exactly what Tu Di is aiming for. Zhao Zuo replies that he won't bow to a kid who only leans on his brother Tu Su's military might. Even if the order wasn't given with the Jade Seal, he'll still send someone to take out Tu Su. Chat Yuan just observes. He knows they backed Tu Di because he seemed like the easiest to control among all the emperor's sons. Suddenly, he starts chuckling to himself, saying the late emperor really had some amazing descendants. The scene then shifts to our boy peacefully sleeping in his bed. But honestly, he's totally bored with this world. The food stinks, and the games are even worse. The music they play is terrible. He doesn't recognize any of the characters, and there's nothing to watch. Without a phone or computer, he feels like he's going to lose it. But then he notices something next to him, and when he turns, it's his dear Shu. I'll just call her Shu to keep her from being confused with her dad, Zhao Zuo, while she's Zhao Shu. Blushing, she says she has to stay close as his servant in his chambers. He pauses for a moment, turns red, and says he takes back everything he said about this place. Well, some time goes by, and it seems our boy has totally forgotten what video games and phones are. I thought he'd be one of those lazy protagonists, but our guy is even stretching his back now. She then spots a suspicious hairpin she's wearing, and he starts thinking this could be his ticket back to his world. Pouring a drink, he calls out Zhao Shu's name and asks if she's a spy sent by her dad to keep an eye on him. Her face changes instantly, and she mutters that it can't be true she's been found out. A bit awkwardly, she asks what he means and says she doesn't get it. But he just says he doesn't care about her connection to Zhao Zuo. He takes a sip, turns away, and says he knows she was put there to watch him. He mentions he loves this little game they're in because being emperor without it would be super dull. But she's worried, wondering how long he's known about her. And if him bringing it up now means he's done with the game. He takes another sip of wine and says it's really something special. He slumps over the table, pretending to pass out, thinking this is her perfect moment. Shu slowly starts to take off her hairpin. Now that she's been found out, she's lost her worth to him and her adoptive dad. The only way to make up for it now is to go through with her plan. She slowly moves closer while he casually hums a little tune. But then, a system message pops up about a point goal. These points are based on the Chan nation's political, economic, military, and cultural success. If the nation's total value drops below 0, the mission is over. At that moment, he starts with 1,000 points. That's when the fool figures out that dying now doesn't mean the mission is done. The issue is, she was already getting close, ready to strike his neck, and now he doesn't want to die for nothing. The girl knows she's being tested, but she can't let this chance slip away. She decides to take the leap, but right then, he turns and grabs her arm. A tear rolls down her cheek, thinking he's tricked her again. He says that was way too close, but she pulls out the hairpin and breaks free, claiming she still has a shot, only to clumsily trip and fall flat on her back. She's crying in frustration while he thinks it's just silly. She's trying to take him out with just 44 points in martial skills. He snatches the hairpin from her and says she got way too hyped over a few words. Tilting her chin up, he tells her this isn't how a real spy should behave. The poor girl is crying, thinking her assassination attempt has flopped. Suddenly, she wakes up somewhere else, confused about where she is. Someone comes up and asks if she finished the mission she was given. She turns to see her adoptive father. He reaches out his hand and says if she can't manage something so easy, she'll have to face the consequences. She screams and then suddenly wakes up next to Toyi. He asks if it was a bad dream, and she wonders if he's going to kill her. Haigasaw replies that he already mentioned he won't kill her, and that he'll keep playing this game, allowing her to send messages. After all, that's what makes it all more fun. She starts dipping ink and writing an imperial decree. Shu can't help but wonder what he's up to with that scary look on his face. She thinks he must be scheming against her adoptive father again. But really, the look is just because writing with that cursed brush is super tough. He takes a deep breath, and she comments that he's going too fast. He humbly turns and asks for help with the writing. Before she can answer, he puts his hand on her shoulder, telling her to sit still. Awkwardly, she admits she doesn't know what kind of decree he wants to write. He explains it's a decree to take away the surnames of all two family descendants and turn them into commoners. She's confused, not getting why he'd banish his own family. She asks why a servant like her has to write something like that. Tuyi had asked the system for the easiest way to lose points, and it told him to get rid of the two family descendants. Since Tusu has a lot of military power, this would also make him look like a cruel tyrant, which is perfect for his plan. Excitedly, he says that in this world he'll be seen as a tyrant and everyone will come after him. He quickly asks why she's hesitating, making her apologize and start writing. He then casually mentions that to satisfy her curiosity, he's doing this to make the game tougher. Putting his hand on her face, he says that with this decree he's now alone, without family support, and has the reputation of a cruel tyrant. And of course, she'll be the one to deliver this news to Zhaoju. He tells her she can think of this info as a gift. Poor Shu, who's been through so much in her life, is getting a gift for the first time. Tugi is eager for her to carry out this task, and even though she knows she's being tricked, she can't help but enjoy it. The scene then shifts to Jeozu's place. She knocks on the door and he opens it, asking what she wants. She walks in and says she has news about Toyi. She explains that Toyi signed a decree taking away all royal positions from the Tu family. The two ministers are shocked. Jushu looks at Chanyuan and mentions he planned to put 2 more heirs in the boys' spots. Sound like trash, and he questions if she let the secret slip. Tearfully, she insists she would never do that. He points at her, accusing her of using the boy to betray her own father. Chang even puts a hand on his shoulder, urging him to calm down. He warns that if Shu had leaked the info, she wouldn't even know about the decree. Zhao Shu hesitates. He then apologizes, saying a dad can mess up, but asks not to be blamed. He turns to Tianyuan and admits their plan to put in another prince has failed. Now it's time to move forward with their plan to gather all the courtiers and embarrass that bastard during his first court session. Chen Yuan starts to say something about the plan, but then decides it's fine. It's better to let it go. He knows Zhao Zhu isn't the sharpest tools in the shed, so it's best for him to handle things on his own. Meanwhile, our buddy Tu Yi is digging for gold in his nose, thinking the decree is all set. The issue is, this isn't nearly enough to tank the country's score, so he needs fresh ideas. He remembers how a massive empire once crumbled. The leader had loads of corrupt ministers and ignored all state matters. But the real reason for the downfall was that he started taking women from everyone, recruiting concubines left and right. Since the courtiers are the most powerful here, he's planning to take their women, which will definitely make them furious and retaliate. He loves this plan. Not only would he lose a ton of points, but he'd also gain a lot. It's the perfect scheme. He then turns to his servant and tells him to fetch Zhao and Lai Chanyuan right away. After a bit, they show up and he opens his arms, saying how much he missed his ministers. Qianyuan greets him with respect. However, Shaozuo sits down and tells him he should start getting to know the courtiers now that he's on the throne. The chubby guy is excited about getting the whole court against Tu Yi. The kid can't do anything about it. But Tu Yi thinks having such a big meeting is the right move, which is exactly why he wants to avoid it. He says it sounds like too much hassle, and since he just became emperor, he's not sure how to handle it. That's why he leans on his two reliable ministers. Chen Yuan just watches, realizing how smart the kid is. Turning down this request would mess up Zhao Zhu's plans, and bringing up trust made it hard to say no. Zhao Zhu's schemes don't stand a chance against him. Our boy grins, thinking it's time for the concubine plan to help him score some points. He then says to put court matters on hold, because today he has something more important to talk about. As emperor, it's embarrassing to have just one concubine, so he plans to gather many beautiful women and grow the harem. Even Xiao Zhu is taken aback by how coldly the kid makes this decision before his father's body is even cold. Meanwhile, Chen Yuan is trying to figure out what the kid is really planning with this harem idea. Su Yi sits there smiling, saying this is a super important issue that needs a quick fix. Looking at the ministers' faces, he knows the points will start dropping soon. Zhao Zhu agrees but points out that searching for women everywhere would take too long. Tu Yi says that's okay. They'll kick things off today, but only within the capital. The chubby guy is puzzled about why Tu Yi is so eager. Meanwhile, Tianyuan suspects that mentioning the capital means the kid's real goal is there. Suddenly, Tu Yi strokes his chin and says he has an idea that'll save a lot of time and effort. They'll start by picking women related to the court ministers. Right away, Yuan is shocked. The scene shifts outside. Zhao Zhu remarks that if Tuni really is an idiot, he's ignoring state matters to focus on expanding his harem. But that works out perfectly. The kid is digging his own grave, so they won't have to lift a finger. But then, Tianyuan suddenly snaps, yelling enough. If he keeps underestimating his majesty like this, their families are going to be in serious trouble. Zhao Zhu looks surprised as Tianyuan calms down. He apologizes for losing his cool but insists that the kid's harem plan is clearly a harmful strategy. Right when he skipped the court meeting, Shodi figured out what Zhao Zhu was up to. Zhao Zhu claims they just came up with this plan before entering, so Tu Yi couldn't possibly know. Chen Yuan points out that this just shows how clever his planning is. Not only did he ignore court matters, but this harem idea is clearly part of a bigger scheme. Zhao Zuo, puzzled, asks what he means by a bigger scheme. Chen Zhuan clarifies that the boy skipped the court meeting because he believes he can control everything without needing to meet them. By taking women from the courtiers' families, he gains power through marriage ties. This way, they both lose their influence. Zhao Zuo wonders what they should do next. Chen Shrinzen says they need to help the boy grow the two family bloodlines. He opens his arms wide and says that as loyal servants, they'll give the boy the perfect chance to achieve his goal. A few days later, in the Imperial Hall, Banyuan tells the prince that all his family members have lost their royal titles, except for his brother, who's still outside. The prince brushes it off, saying that's not important. They can discuss it later. First, he wants to check on how the selection is going. Chen Yuan updates him that the ministers did their best to follow his orders, but time was tight. Tu claps his hands and tells him to take a look. The curtains pull back, revealing a whole group of women in front of him. The boy is practically drooling, saying this is like paradise. All the women start bowing to his majesty. Tu sneaks up behind Shan Yuan and asks if any of these concubines are into combat behind closed doors. A bit confused, Tan Yuan says he doesn't really get what he means. Tu Yi finds it strange, clearly. Even if the guy doesn't understand him, the situation should make it clear. Meanwhile, Tian Yuan wonders if the prince is starting to catch on. Among the concubines he brought, all are from powerful families, except for two. The one in red is Fan Taoxiu, and the one in purple is Zhu Xia. About 10 years ago, when the emperor ruled the Qian dynasty, their families crossed him and were completely wiped out. On a whim, Xian Yuan saved the two girls from execution. For the last decade, he's kept their identities hidden and raised them by his side. They've got the old skills of their families, making them perfect tools for him. In a private room, Shan Yuan calls for Tao Ju and Xia, telling them the Qialan emperor who wiped out their families is dead. Since they can't take revenge themselves, he asks if they still feel angry. They respond that they'd gladly die 1,000 times for revenge. For Tianwen, this was the ideal moment to place them next to the prince without raising any eyebrows. With a glint in his eye, Tu Yi comments on how those two really stand out. Their body shapes are kind of mismatched, right? He thinks. But Chui Niwen starts to sweat, worried that the boy might have already figured things out. The system revealed all their skills, including that Xu Shui was adopted by Chui Niwen and plans to kill him and take down the nation. Clearly, Fantazu has different traits, but her goal is the same. Chan Yuan thinks he made a smart move sending these two, a snake and a scorpion right next to the tyrant, set to help bring down the country. He walks over, smiles, and tells them they're amazing, asking for their names. One of the girls introduces herself, and Tuyi moves closer to Sha, noting that she looks a bit anxious. Shanyuan is sweating, worried that her shy nature might give away her real intentions. Tuyi gently lifts her chin, telling her not to be scared, reassuring her that he's calm and friendly. He keeps teasing her until she suddenly says she can't handle it anymore. Out of nowhere, she collapses, appearing to faint. What the system didn't mention is that Xia struggles to control her emotions when touched and faints from embarrassment. Tuyi is stunned while Tianyuan looks even more frightened. All Tuyi wanted was to show some interest in the girl Shanyuan brought. He didn't expect her to be so sensitive to touch, ruining his moment. Now, Chanyuan worries her identity might get revealed and thinks he might need to replace her. Kneeling down, Taeyuan apologizes, confessing it was a huge mistake to include her in the selection. He says he deserves to die and will get rid of her right away. But Tu Yi raises his hand saying that's not needed. He picks her up in his arms, grinning, saying he actually likes women who can't handle a little touch. Chu Yuan's choices have impressed him. Fan Taoshu silently thinks this tyrant is definitely a pervert. Shan Yuan wipes his face and thanks the king. Meanwhile, Chui decides she's going to serve him in bed tonight. Fan Taozu stands by, silently promising himself he'll make them pay for this. Suddenly, Chui looks over, and they both seem puzzled. He wonders why she looks so unhappy. Maybe she's also looking forward to serving him tonight. He then announces that the three of them will join him tonight. Without wasting any time, the scene shifts to the bedroom. Looking at the two, Tu Yi comments that among the palace beauties, they're definitely the most gorgeous. Plus, the system warned that they're getting closer to him to bring down the country, which is just perfect. They also have a lot of strong skills, thanks to their training with Tian Yuan. The only problem is that Tu Yi only knows the basics about them. He has no idea what their real skills are, or if they can help take down the kingdom. Fantaju looks back, curious about what this tyrant is thinking. The two girls share a look, ready to sacrifice themselves for their mission. They plan to use every trick to humiliate him and force him to submit to his rule. Back in the present, Tu Yi suddenly says it's time. But he just stands there, staring, making Fan Taozhou even more nervous. He specifically asked for both of them, which seems suspicious. They remember Tianyu saying he had the perfect way to hide their identities, so that shouldn't be a problem. However, they need to be careful since Tugi is really clever and not easily fooled by looks. Plus, he has Miss Shu, who is both their ally and a rival. If they want to gain his trust, they need to show they're worth more than just their looks. Tu Yi steps closer and asks if they know how to do that. Back in the moment, Tu Yi asks what the two are so deep in thought about. He says he'll ask again if they have any special skills or talents. This was the moment they'd been waiting for, just as Tian Yu had instructed. Xia then speaks up, saying she's good at predicting parts of the future, stargazing and script analysis. She also has skills in talismans, feng shui, healthcare, medicine, and alchemy. He's genuinely impressed. She finally brings up her experience with more private skills, but Fantaozu finds it funny that she'd say that after fainting from just a touch. Totu Yi then looks at Fantajo, asking what she knows. Fantajo can tell from his face that he's not happy with Shay's response. A key point is that she comes from a merchant family. Since she was a kid, she's been involved in deals with her grandfather. Being in that environment made her good with money, math, and reading people. But her grandfather warned her that those skills could make powerful people suspicious. She needs to get revenge while keeping herself safe. In other words, she has to show her worthwhile looking innocent. So she tells Tuvier that she's just a weak girl with no special skills, talents, or powers. She decides not to mention her money skills or understanding of people. Trying to look like an innocent young lady, she says she came from a rich family, but her parents are gone now. All she has left is their wealth. Tuyu wonders if this girl is like Batman, an orphan rich and left alone. But looking at the situation, he sees a way to get them to help him take down the country. He asks her why he, as the ruler, should care about her wealth. He suggests maybe she should be in charge of the national treasury. She's immediately shocked by the idea. Toyi thinks that since she's a pampered girl from a rich family, she must be bad with money. Putting her in charge of finances is a great way to cause an economic disaster. Then he turns to Sha and says that since she's good at studies, he'll make her the national teacher. Plus, she'll be in charge of his health through alchemy. Sha is completely stunned by this offer. He's sure that if she handles medical stuff, a lot of people will get poisoned. Then he adds that now that she's the national teacher, he wants to see her in a Taewis robe all the time. All because he thinks cosplay is pretty awesome. She's terrified while Tuzi is bleeding from excitement. The scoundrel is already imagining that if there's going to be cosplay, it should be everywhere. Having a cosplay harem in this martial world doesn't sound too bad. We switch to Azuazo's study, where Tuye is busy writing an imperial edict. It looks like he's made a fake version of the Jade Seal. What he's written is a plan to eliminate Tusu. Once his brother is gone, the nasty Tuyi will have a way to handle the rest. Suddenly, he calls for someone to come in. General Zhao Xin shows up, ready for orders. The chubby emperor hands him the decree and tells him to head to Lintong City to deliver it to Tusu. He needs to see Tusu take his own life and bring back his head. The general just nods in agreement. Outside on the rooftop, someone sends us a message via an eagle to notify Lord Chiu. The eagle flies past the moon, showing an army moving through the woods. But a cloaked group is hiding in the trees, and the eagle lands on one of their shoulders. A girl in a butterfly mask tells them to get ready, but she's a bit clumsy and falls, screaming for everyone to move. She crashes down, and it seems this happens a lot, since the others say they're getting used to it. Lying awkwardly in the bushes, she orders them to attack. Zhao Oxen, riding his horse, suddenly spots a rope below. He tries to steer away, but it's too late, and everyone tumbles off. One knight tries to get up, but gets hit from behind. Assassins drop down from the trees, throwing kunai at him. Ahead, someone warns that Lord Xiao said no one should escape. Jiang Xin demands to know how rebels dare to block an imperial decree. That figure pauses for a second before lunging forward and taking out two soldiers. But then he spots wings ahead, and a voice from above mocks him, asking if that's all he's got. In a flash, she's behind him with a blade at his neck. Joksan announces they're part of the Kun Guard. Without a word, the woman finishes him off, and one of the men grabs a box. He declares that, as expected, the imperial decree was found on this guy. Lord Xiao confirms it's the decree telling Prince Tusu to commit suicide, clearly sent by that cruel ruler. One soldier hesitates, questioning if they're going too far by stopping an imperial decree. Something whizzes by his head. Xiao reminds him of the Kun Guard's real mission. They work in the shadows to uphold the late Emperor Chenzhen's wishes. They don't hold back, using the most brutal tactics. But they can't forget their old bond with the Emperor, who named Tusu as the crown prince before he died. It's their job to make sure that happens. But Tugi not only took the throne, but also tried to kill Tusu. Xiao tears up the decree, saying this proves it. The new emperor is an enemy the Khan Guard needs to take out. She tells everyone to clear the area and make sure no info gets out. Tusu is still way up north, and even on horseback, it'll take him at least 4 days to get back. During this time, Tuyi won't know if the decree worked or not. And before this can come to light, Xiao plans to take out Tuye. Meanwhile, Tuye, coughing from that death bow, wonders which of the lovely ladies is thinking about him. 5 days later, we check back in with the two residents. He still hasn't heard anything. Clearly not. The messenger was killed. Shan Yuan comes over and asks what he's waiting for. Tuyi casually says he's not waiting for anything and wonders why Tan Yuan is taking so long. Shan Yuan holds up a finger and says he's got good news and bad news. Zhao Zu interrupts, asking what could be worse than their current mess. Shan Yuan calmly says their plan to fake the imperial decree and kill Tusu has flopped. Zhao Zu is stunned and grabs him, accusing him of talking nonsense. But Shan Yuan pushes his hand away and reminds Zhao Zhuo they're on the same team, so he should stop pretending. He reveals that Zhao Xin was stopped outside the city 5 days ago, and the one who took him out was none other than the Kun Guard's leader, Xiao. The chubby guy is puzzled, wondering why the late emperor's secret unit is getting involved. Qian Yuan tells him to hang tight for the good news. Xiaobu killed Zhao Xin and thinks Tu Yi sent the decree, making him her next target. Zhao Ju celebrates, but then he hesitates. He asks how Tianyuan knows this since the Khan Guard works on its own. Tianyuan just says he has his ways and that Zhao Ju shouldn't stress about it. They got lucky this time and need to take advantage of it. This is the perfect moment to restore the balance they really need, especially since the king is throwing a big banquet today with lots of guests. If Xiao wanted to attack, tonight is the ideal time. As Xiao jumps in the moonlight, Time Yuan realizes the guard is weak, making their plan likely to succeed. Even if the assassination flops, Qian Yu would end up hating his brother, ruining the balance. Zhao Zu cheers, saying that Wei Qianyu would be killed and Shu Su would take the fall. Shan Yuan thinks this would be the best outcome, but it's now up to fate. Zhao Zhuo wonders how this plan could possibly go wrong, but Shan Yuan is already leaving, saying he just came to give them the news and asks to be excused. As he walks down the stairs, he thinks the only thing he can't predict is how the king will react. Plus, the two girls he put next to Tu can't stand him, and tonight is their perfect chance to make a move. But no matter how skilled they are, can they outsmart the king? All he hopes is that he's not being too paranoid. Meanwhile, in the palace hall, Tu's cosplay banquet has kicked off. Right in the center, Qian King stands out. He has Shu dressed as Nezuko and Tao Zhu as Saber, or at least that's what it looks like. The girls are complimenting each other, while others chat with them. It seems the participants are vying for Tu Yi's attention. Some even wish they had worn something more modest. A soft step echoes through the hall. Lady Xiao, the leader of the Kang Guard, has shown up. She thinks this ruler is truly a shameless pervert with strange tastes as she scans the hall. However, she wonders what's going on since none of the women seem to have any fighting skills. Still, the competitive looks among the harem candidates are sharp and fierce. She overhears two women whispering that wearing such revealing outfits must mean she's very ambitious. A woman in green compliments Shio's outfit, calling it creative. In this harem contest, your family background is everything. Chua feels like taking out all these women but holds back. Her real target is someone else. Suddenly, the crowd goes wild as the king shows up. Tu makes a grand entrance. Turns out the girls in costumes weren't Xia and Tao Zhu but other competitors. He blows a kiss and tells them he loves them all. They smile back, saying they love him too. But Chu Yi quickly spots something odd. It's Xiao, of course. The system already marked her as the guard leader and a supporter of Tusu. Right away, Xiao feels his eyes on her and wonders if she's been caught. She quietly grabs a kunai, thinking it's time to deal with this creep. Suddenly, she shouts at the king and strides toward him, saying it's time to face death. The other women gasp, questioning how she dares to speak like that in front of him. They start to wonder if this is what the cosplay banquet is really about. 5 days earlier, Tu Yi had gathered all the women to tell them about the competition. Naturally, one of them asked what a cosplay banquet even was. He casually said it was just a fun event where they'd wear different outfits, play games, and hang out with him. That made no sense at all. The sisters thought Xiao was just pretending to be an assassin to catch his attention. Xiao charged in, shouting that he would die, but he just blew her a heart-shaped kiss. One annoyed woman muttered that this pathetic girl was faking being an assassin. Knowing danger turns guys on. Xiao glanced to the side and saw Yuta jumping at her, determined to stop her from winning with a stunt like that. Xiao grabbed her arm and slammed her to the ground. Confused, Xiao wondered if these women were all crazy. They had no skills, but still dared to attack her. Maybe this was what roleplay was really about. Suddenly, all the women charged at Xiao, insisting they wouldn't let her steal the spotlight. They grabbed her and pulled her away, claiming they had to protect his majesty from a loser like her. Being shoved around, Xiao couldn't understand why these women were fighting so hard for this guy. Holding her dagger tight, she decided she wouldn't hold back if this was their choice. When she saw Shou getting ready to attack, Tootie freaked out. These women were crucial for his tyrant role. He quickly told her to stop and let the girls go. Xiao thought to herself that this twisted ruler was bold to talk to her like that. Then she asked if he was ready to die for them. The women grinned and confidently said they'd die for him. But Tu Yi knew he couldn't die just yet. The nation still had too much at stake. He apologized, saying his time to go hadn't come. Chu scoffed, saying his words were meaningless. Tu Yi stepped forward and promised to hand the throne to Tu Su. He realized she was there to kill him and clear the path for Tu Su. Chu wondered if he already knew who she was and if this was a setup. She demanded to know his real plans. Raising his arms, Tubi confessed he was tired of pretending. His only aim was to be a lazy and useless ruler. The throne didn't matter compared to a harem of beautiful women, and he was ready to give it up to someone better. The system instantly alerted him that his speech had triggered a story route leading to the nation's destruction. This required a huge army outside the capital, and him stepping down for a general. If his plan worked, he'd lose 1,000 points, bringing him down to 0. Wakshu thought he might be lying. She also knew no one in this world could resist such power, especially a creep like him. Coldly, she told him to forget it. Serious or not, she'd kill him and give the throne to Tusu. To Yi, confused by her relentless urge to kill him, tried to convince her otherwise. He warned that if he died here, Tusu's reputation would suffer, and he wouldn't be seen as a true emperor. Everything he was doing was for his brother's sake. Qiao saw a movement, triggering a flashback of the late emperor. He once asked Xiao if he had become a good emperor after calming the north. Xiao said that with his skills and military smarts, he'd be remembered as a wise ruler for ages. But he regretted that his talents were only good for fighting, and that kind of ruler wasn't what this dynasty needed moving forward. Xiao reassured him that an emperor like him would always be important. He turned away, acknowledging his time was limited, which might not be a bad thing for the dynasty. What he really wanted was a successor who didn't need to be super talented, even someone lazy or careless, as long as they valued peace over ambition and greed. Xiao always thought the true heir should be the prince, but based on what the late emperor said, Tu Yi seemed more suited for that role. Shaken, Xiao scolded herself, refusing to let a few words sway her. The rightful heir to the dynasty was Tu Shu, the legitimate son. She promised to take Tu Ye to Tu Shu and let him decide his own fate. She told Tu Ye to come with her to Lintong City for the abdication ceremony. This was perfect for Tu Ye. With the system's warning, things seemed to be going well. But suddenly, someone blocked their way. It was Zhuge Xia holding a glowing talisman, demanding to know what right Xiao had to take the emperor. Xiao was glowing with a purple aura, surprising everyone. Xiao, realizing that everything Tu Yi said might have been a trick, tensed up. She tightened her grip on her dagger, cursing the tyrant for messing with people's feelings. Despite seeming to have a big plan, Tu Yi was completely lost. He wondered what kind of mess he had just gotten into. Tao Zu reassured Tu Yi not to stress, saying Xiao's talisman skills were amazing. She insisted Xiao wouldn't lose to that assassin, and with both of them watching over him, he wouldn't be taken anywhere. But Tu Yi wondered when he ever asked these girls to protect him. Flashback to a few nights ago, Tianyuan was seen talking to the two girls. He asked if they knew their real mission after getting close to Tu Yi in the palace. Xiao confidently replied that she planned to find the right moment to take out that twisted tyrant and get revenge for her family. However, Tianyuan explained that many people had died, but just killing him once wouldn't cut it. Their main mission was to completely destroy the whole dynasty. For now, they had to make sure Tu Yi stayed alive. Both girls were puzzled by this. Chenyuan clarified that Tu Yi always seemed incompetent and foolish. That's why Tianyuan helped him rise to the throne, while Tu Su was leading the army. So, Tianyuan laid it all out. Xiao wonders if she's meant to be a concubine and manipulate Tu Yi into actions that will bring down the Qian dynasty. Tianyuan confirms that's the plan, but warns it was just the start. After taking the throne, Tu Yi completely changed. His foolishness was just an act, making him way harder to figure out. That's why they need to stick close and find out his real weakness. Xiao is taken aback. It's the first time she's seen Tianyuan so serious. She can't tell if he's scared or excited. Chenyuan then turns to Fan Taoju, complimenting her smarts and trusting she'll catch on quickly. He's good with talismans and alchemy, strong in a fight but not the brightest. Their strengths make them ideal for the key part of the plan. Tu Yi must never be next to Prince Tusu. Back to the present, Fan Taoju laughs, saying Tianyuan was spot on. Tu Yi's incompetence was just a cover. He knew Xiao was a woman from the Kungar and set up this strange cosplay event to draw her in. Once she got close, he created the perfect chance to have her take him to Tu Su, setting up his revenge against the ministers. What Tu Yi didn't realize was that she and Yuan had already seen this coming and positioned themselves by his side. Tu Yi, trying to stop Xiao from continuing the duel, gets annoyed as Tao Zu chuckles. Suddenly, he notices something off and looks back. Tao Shu starts whistling, acting like she's minding her own business. But Tu Yi quickly figures it out. Since both girls were sent by Tianyuan, they won't let him give up the throne to Tu Su. The issue is that this event was perfect for Tu Yi to wreck the empire, so he needed to find a way to control Xiao. His expression shifts as he recalls Shu's biggest weakness. As Xiao steps back to gather herself, Tu Yi sneaks up behind her and grabs her waist. Lifting her chin, he says a supreme leader like him can't depend on concubines for safety. Xiao instantly blushes, tries to say something but faints. Tu Yi smirks and tells Xiao to take advantage of the chance now that it's here. Xiao pauses, confused. Clearly, there had to be more tricks from this tyrant. Tu Yi tells her to hurry up, asking what she's waiting for. With no other option, Xiao decides to take him down first and figure the rest out later. Tu Yi is thrilled, finally getting what he wanted. But as he gets closer, Xiao suddenly collapses. What Tu Yi doesn't know is that Xiao has a secret ability. When she completely passes out from touching him, any woman who comes into contact with him becomes her enemy. Xiao comes to her senses, glaring at the other girls. She slowly walks forward, giving off a dark vibe. Though unsure, she crosses her arms and performs a jutsu. Summoning a level 3 fire spell, a flame ignites in her hand, turning into a huge fireball. Xiao is shocked while Tao Zu watches in disbelief. Tu Yi panics, realizing that if Xiao dies, his whole plan is doomed. He rushes in, shoving Xiao aside and shouting for her to move. Just then, Xiao unleashes her attack, creating a huge explosion in the palace. And somehow they kiss. Wait, what just happened? Is this a 2003 NM? Xiao turns as red as a tomato, ready to yell at him, but then she hits her head on the floor and faints. Smoke rises, leaving both of them lying there. Tao Zhu is stunned until Tu Yi suddenly shows up. The system notifies him that the current event has failed. But now, a new event, Circle of the Pillar, has started. This event kicks off when an assassin tries to kill him in the main hall, and a third person skilled in medicine tries to protect him. To Yi knows that if he beats the assassin, he'll earn 1,000 national power points. In that moment, To Yi is crushed. What kind of crazy situation is this? Why is it called destruction of the country if I'm getting 1,000 points? Nearby, Tao Zhu watches everything, amazed by his presence. Even with both experts passed out, he seems completely fine. She starts to see why Tianyuan was scared of this version of Tu Yi. Later, Xiao starts to wake up. The maniac comes closer and she looks confused. She sits up, asks where she is, and he casually replies that it's his room. Seeing she's chained up, she calls him a shameless creep. Tu Yi looks confused as she insists he won't get her body. He rolls his eyes, saying she's losing it, and reminds her that if it weren't for him, she'd be dead at Tianyuan's hands. Not long after their fight started, someone kicked the door open. It was Tianyuan, barging in with his army, ordering them to take out the assassin and protect his majesty. He walked up to Tu Yi, knelt down, and apologized, saying Tu Yi deserved to die for the risk he took. Tu Yi said it was okay since he wasn't hurt. Chen Yuan then offered to take the assassin to find out who's behind all this. Tu Yi suddenly yelled at him not to do that. Awkwardly, he tried to make an excuse. He picked up the assassin and said he wanted her company because she was quite pretty. Chang Yuan, confused, warned him that the assassin was really dangerous and not someone to keep around. Tu Yi replied that made things even more thrilling. Besides, did Tian Yuan think he couldn't handle a woman who was unarmed and tied up? Tian Yuan looked down and assured him he'd never think that. Tu Yi then told Zhu Gu to keep an eye on the sister. Calling for Shu, he dismissed everyone else. Now deep in thought, he realized the initial mission had failed. But keeping the assassin alive could be useful since she might go back to Tusu and help take down the nation. Xiao told him he was too close and said she could be killed or tortured, not putting up with that closeness. She pushed his head away, reminding him she had already killed the messenger sent to execute Tusu, so he should just end her. She added that Tusu would be arriving soon to deal with him. Tuge, clueless, asked when he had sent someone to kill his brother. She told him to stop pretending because she knew about the message he sent. Shu, however, recognized it as her adoptive father's work. Noticing Xiao's expression, Tu Yi figured if she knew something, it was probably about her adoptive father. For him, this was ideal, but it was also a chance to stir up more hatred against Tu Su. Xiao was taken aback as Tu Yi laughed and said he just remembered the order he sent out. Shu was puzzled about why he would confess to that. Tu Yi walked over to the wall, grabbed a sword, and stated that his brother commanded a huge army, which should be his to control. Shu questioned why the king wanted to take on all the responsibility. Tu Yi mentioned that sending an order to kill his brother would be too dull. He planned to handle it in a much more entertaining way. Xiao was stunned when Tu Yi made a swift move, but of course he just cut the chains. Xiao asked why he wasn't killing her, and he replied that since she had taken out the messenger, she now had to deliver the new order. He explained that their father trained Tu Su to be a hero and claim the throne. To him, Tu Su was just a strong brute with nothing to fear. With a grin, Tu Yi declared he would not only strip his brother of his titles, but also reduce him to a commoner. Xiao looked shocked and almost cartoonish, as if her eyes were too far apart, struggling to believe what she heard. Tu Yi told her to pass the message to her brother, and if he disagreed, he could come and take back what was his. Tu Yi said he'd be waiting for him in the capital. Thrilled with his act, Tu Yi was sure Xiao would now hate him and take the message to Tu Su. Then the system kicked off the rebellion arc from the story's roots. For the story to unfold, the capital needed a prince with a strong army. As emperor, the system user had to order the prince stripped of his powers. If the prince rebelled in this initial phase, the host would lose 1,000 points. If the prince ended up storming the castle and wrecking everything, the host would lose 10,000 points. Tu Yu was excited. Losing 10,000 points would definitely put him in the negatives. Meanwhile, Xiao thought this prince was completely unhinged. Maybe this was a good thing because it gave Tu Su a better shot at reclaiming the throne. Tu Yi calmly let the woman leave. Shu wondered why the king not only let the assassin go, but also took the blame for her father's actions. Tu Yi, no fool, started to grasp how things worked. He couldn't just rely on the system's events since last time he ended up gaining points. He needed to better utilize the ministers around him. As he looked at Shu, he recalled her dad suggesting that court meeting. Feely noticed Shu was confused until Tu Yi called her name. He apologized for focusing so much on Taoju and Xia. Shu replied that it was scary to hear that from him. He walked over and told her to chill, reminding her she could tell her dad anything. This time, he wanted to send another message to him. She was supposed to let him know that Tu Yi would join the court meeting he wanted to set up, so he just needed to pick a date. Shu agreed, and the next day came. Everyone was already in the hall when they announced Zhao Ju's arrival. People greeted him, and the chubby guy came in happily, thanking them for their compliments and saying there was no need for formalities. But he noticed the crowd didn't seem too excited, which struck him as odd. He quickly realized Tianyuan's seat was empty. A man came up and told him that Tianyuan had sent word he wasn't feeling well. Zhao Zu thought to himself that Tianyuan was underestimating his plans. He turned to the messenger and said Tianyuan should really take care of himself, so it was okay he wasn't here today. But Zhao Zu had already made up his mind. Today he would first show his authority over Tujin court and then handle Tianwen. Then they announced the emperor had arrived. Cao Zhu turned around and everyone bowed. Tu Yi walked in with Shu beside him. People whispered, wondering when an emperor started attending court with his concubines. It was against the rules. Tu Yi turned and said if they couldn't handle just one concubine, they were in big trouble. That's when they started to panic, putting their hands on their heads as they saw what was coming. Of course, he had brought all the palace women with him. Some fainted, while others cried for the late emperor. The women curiously asked if this was the big core assembly, tugging at the old ministers' beards. Laughing, Tu Yi said the girls were eager to see this. So he was sure no one would oppose Zhao Ju, though he wondered if the boy had lost his mind doing this. Another minister was shocked, saying even the girl his family sent was there, which was embarrassing. He asked His Majesty if he brought them to court just to humiliate them. Zhao pointed out that bringing a harem here was against the rules. Tu Yi calmly reassured them, saying he had no hidden agenda. He was just a silly leader wanting to enjoy his harem wherever he went. Zhao Zu didn't know how to react. Tu Yi realized that as long as he was straightforward and bold, they couldn't do anything about it. He then asked one of the ministers if they were going to set up seats for everyone. Soon enough, small wooden stools were brought in. The women sat down, wanting to be closer to the throne, and Tu Yi promised to do better next time. At that moment, he got a notification saying he was breaking the country's customs, losing 500 points. He was thrilled. Causing chaos in court was his best move. Clearly, his plan was to ruin all dignity and lose as many points as he could. Zhao Zu thought he had to put up with this embarrassment for now, but soon the boy would learn his lesson. Tu Yi then asked if any ministers had updates for him. The ministers sensed that the drama was about to unfold since Lord Zhao would make a move against the young emperor. Xiaoju stepped up and said he had something to share. He mentioned that some intriguing signs had appeared on East Island, and he came to report them. Tu Yi asked what those signs were, and the chubby man chuckled. He said the sign was none other than the sacred beast, the azure dragon. But honestly, that azure dragon looked more green than blue. The elder claimed this symbol represented the growth of the Qian dynasty. Tu glanced over, not looking too impressed. Zhao Zu wondered why the boy didn't seem excited about such a good omen. Could it be that his plan was already being uncovered? He suggested that Tu should personally check out the divine beast. Clapping his hands, Zhao Zu ordered it to be brought in. A green paw stepped into the hall, causing a panic. The ministers tried to steer clear of it. Tu Yi, however, looked intrigued. Two men to bring in a huge creature that looked like a crocodile, stopping it in front of Tu Yi. Tu Yi burst out laughing, asking if that was really the divine azure dragon. It was obviously just a painted dragon-like thing. Zhao Zhu urged Tu Yi to appreciate the dragon's supposed grandeur. Meanwhile, he nervously waited to see how the boy would react to the spirit beast. At that moment, one of the system's special events kicked in. For this event to happen, someone connected to the throne needed to offer a beast as a gift, but it had to be a fake. Basically, they had to pretend it was one thing while it was really another. To finish the event and lose 2,000 points, Tu Yi needed to be convinced by the ministers that this was the real deal. Tu Yi grinned, thinking Zhao Zu always had cool surprises. Now it was time for his next act. The huge dragon opened its mouth as Tu Yi watched. The handlers struggled to keep it in check, while some ministers couldn't help but laugh. At that moment, Tu Yi remarked that this so-called azure dragon didn't seem very real. But that was exactly what Zhao Zhu wanted, and it was time to start playing him. Tu Yan said it must be an azure dragon, and asked if the ministers agreed it was a divine beast. That was Xiao Zu's plan from the start, and soon, the other ministers started to nod in agreement. One even pulled out a book, claiming his ancestors had seen an azure dragon that looked just like this one. Everyone congratulated Zhao Zuo, saying getting such a beast was a huge honor. This was Zhao Ju's tactic to turn the ministers against Tu Yi and slowly chip away at his power. But for Tu Yi, who wanted to lose those two, 0 points, this was just perfect. Just as he was about to compliment it, someone shouted that the creature was gross. Confused, he asked who said that. Then he noticed it was one of the girls from his harem. She said something that ugly could never be a magnificent azure dragon. Tu Yi shook with worry, wondering why these women were jumping in at such a critical time. Trying to fix things, he called for Shu. He asked if she had anything to say about the situation. But Shu was totally confused, not getting what he wanted her to say. He told her he wanted to know if she thought the creature in the hall was a real azure dragon. Shu hesitated. The emperor had always let her spy for Zhou Zuo, so why was he asking her to pick a side now? Maybe she didn't pose a threat to him after all. He kept giving her chances to choose between him and her adoptive dad. In that moment, she recalled how close he had been to Tao Zuo and Xie lately. That settled her choice. She glanced at Zhao Zuo, who looked nervous, sure that his adoptive daughter would back his plans. But then she questioned how something so ugly could be called a sacred beast. Zhao Zuo was taken aback. She yelled, asking if Zhao Zuo was trying to trick the emperor, which was obviously treason. Zhao Zuo didn't see betrayal coming at a moment like this. Meanwhile, Tu Yi was puzzled about why she hadn't turned on him. He rolled his eyes, trying to figure out why she suddenly went against her father. Excited, she turned to the other women and asked if they agreed. They all started shouting that the four-legged creature clearly wasn't a dragon. Such betrayal from Zhao Ju deserved death. Zhao Ju was in shock. He turned to Loraxia and claimed it was his illegitimate daughter sent to the palace who stirred this up. Loraxia rolled up his sleeves and shouted, calling her disrespectful. He questioned what he had taught her and how she dared to be rude to Lord Zhao, but from the crowd, his illegitimate daughter called him the insolent one. After all, the Qian dynasty didn't belong to Zhao Zuo. Plus, she was only sent to serve the emperor because she was illegitimate, and her father didn't trust the boy, so he cast her aside. Lord Xia was shocked by his illegitimate daughter's harsh words. The other ministers asked if he was okay. He struggled to grasp how his daughter had turned so disloyal. Meanwhile, the women seemed to be scheming. One of them spoke up, saying her father was laundering the city's money and mistreating the people. Another told Tu Yi that her father was taking over other people's lands. Before long, all the women in the harem started spilling the beans about their families to Tu Yi. Zhao Ju was trying to figure out how they were getting outplayed by the harem in this court. It was clear that Chan Yuan was spot on, and underestimating this kid was a big mistake. Zhao Ju shot a glare at Tu Yi, noticing him behind his fierce harem. Tu Yi was already pulling out a knife, and now Zhao Ju was freaking out. He started to wonder if this emperor was really the chosen one. As Tu Yi stepped forward, Zhao Ju felt like a golden dragon was closing in. The chubby guy kept thinking if he was really going to die because of a woman's influence against him. It looked like Tu Dia actually swung his sword, while Zhao Zuo just stood there. Everyone in the hall was stunned, and the women covered their mouths in shock. Wow, did that guy just kill a Komodo dragon, or is that what they call a celestial dragon? Then he walks up to Lord Zhao, saying it's not worth ruining their relationship over something so trivial. He didn't need to stress, because no matter how tough it was, he could take it down easily. He suggested everyone pretend today's court meeting never happened. Then he asked Lord Zhao for his thoughts on that. The chubby guy holds back but agrees, saying His Majesty is right. But later on, he was crushed when the system said he had completed the event successfully. With Zhao Ju's plans failing, his authority in the court grew. With that, he racked up another 2,000 points, bringing his total to 2,900. The poor guy looked at his hand, blaming himself for bringing that Dan harem. In the background, Shu wondered why he didn't seem happy and how he managed to scare Zhao Zuo. Then she approached him, asking if she was satisfied with her performance. He paused for a moment, turned with a sly smile, and said it was all right. But it would have been better if she understood his real intentions. Shu seemed a bit off. He got that she did the right thing, but she should have done it without waiting for any signal from him. Still, His Majesty didn't need to worry because next time, she'd take the initiative. The issue for Tu Yi is that he totally wrecked Zhao Zu's reputation, so that guy can't help him lose points anymore. Now, he can only count on old Shan Yuan. He asks for help again to write an imperial edict, and Shu is quick to ask what his plans are this time. He mentions they're promoting Shan Yuan to Grand Chancellor. He checks if she has any issues with that, and she's already sitting there, writing. She knows that Grand Chancellor is the top spot among ministers. Since the Great Chan Empire started, only Wei Xingliu held that title over a century ago. Now that Zhao Ju is out of power, Tang Yuan has taken over this role. She wonders if this is part of a plan against him too. Maybe it's a tactic to pit the two of them against each other. He then seals the paper with a stamp. Suddenly, he freezes when a system alert pops up, saying his brother has gathered troops in Beijing. The first phase of the Jim Rebellion is done, and he loses 2,000 points, leaving him with 900. He starts laughing maniacally, saying these damn court points are vanishing. He begins stamping the seal, still laughing like crazy. The scene cuts to a battlefield filled with dead soldiers half a month later. It's the Southern Front, and supplies are being looted. A guy stabs a cart, and liquid spills out. He tells everyone these are military supplies, so they don't need to worry about running out. Nearby, a man on horseback has a red streak in his hair. The army commander, Wang Zhang, rides up and greets him as Your Majesty. He mentions they've been moving through the south for 10 days without seeing any royal troops, making it easy. But lately, the fights against Longsheng troops have been too simple, and he suspects a trap. The man with the red streak asks him to explain. He clarifies that the Longsheng troops are led by Lai Chan Yuan. They aren't Festremist, but they're still elite. Instead of fighting, they just ditch the supplies and flood this area. The men are hauling supplies, and the guy agrees that General Wang might be onto something. I think it's Hunig Xiaoli who says Tu Yi is very sly and despicable. He must be scheming something with Tian Nuan. The guy laughs, saying he knows this was all intentional. He clearly knows his brother's tactics. Look who's showing up now, everyone. Next, we see a weird house where an old man asks his faraway friend what comes next. The kid seems to be looking for the rest of the saying about a friend arriving from a distance. After a moment, he says that a friend from far away should be punished. The old man gives him a light smack on the head, saying for a crown prince, he sure is pretty clueless, making it impossible to trust him with the dynasty. But the boy tells his dad that his brain has been working just fine since yesterday. He bumped heads with some soldiers and came out okay. The dad just stays quiet and says he doesn't get to eat today. On top of that, he has to copy his lessons 100 times. The boy slumps on the table, mumbling that he wishes he could eat something, until someone throws a rock at his head. It's the main character calling out to Tusu, asking if he got yelled at by the old man again, and he wonders how his brother, the crown prince, has it tougher than he does. Tusu turns and says that's exactly why he wants him there. Tusu's dad had high hopes for him and wanted him to be remembered as a smart leader. Tu Yi says that sounds great, but if you can't enjoy life, being an emperor isn't worth it. His brother says he doesn't want to run the country, he just wants to lead troops in battle. So why did he have to be born with that title? But as the eldest son of the 2D family and the prince of the Great Chen Kingdom, he didn't have a choice. Tu Yi looks deep in thought. Then he says it would be easy. In the future, he'd take the emperor's spot to help him out. He'd even drop the Tu surname from his brothers so they wouldn't have to worry and could live freely. Tusu is on his horse, saying Tu Yi never changes and is still a fool. He tells everyone to head towards the city of Tianjin. Meanwhile, in the capital, Shu tells Tian Yuan to leave because the king doesn't want to see anyone. Tian Yuan says the enemy troops are less than 800 miles away, and he needs to talk to the king. Shu replies that Tu Yi already knows, but trusts Tian Yuan to handle it well. After all the Longsheng guards are under his command, so this is now his job. As Grand Chancellor, he should help share the king's burdens and tackle the issues. Tian Yuan wonders if Tu Yi is trying to pin all the blame on him. But he shouts that they're underestimating Tusu's forces. Was he really known as the great general? Shu reassures him that Tuti already knows everything. Shan Yuan was supposed to manage the rear troops without taking chances. The plan was for the soldiers to show some courage against the enemy and then fall back. Even if they lost, it would still be an honor. Chang Yuan is puzzled, trying to figure out if winning or losing really doesn't matter. What were His Majesty's real intentions behind this move? Shu just walks away, saying His Majesty is looking forward to good news. He shuts the door and starts stretching, saying it's tiring to pretend in front of that old man. With his arms crossed, Sui asks if everything went smoothly, and Shu replies that it did. Following his orders, she made sure Qianyuan would lead the army and pull back. Sui then comes over for a massage, curious about what's next, since if the northern troops reach Ganjing, the fallout would be huge. How could Yi put Qianyuan in charge at such a critical time and still claim winning or losing didn't matter? He insists he cares about victory or defeat, thinking it would be great if they lost. He's doing all this because their troops are the second best in the Great Chen Empire. so there was a chance they might actually hold their ground. That's why, if they had to fight, he ordered Qianyuan to lead them into a more open area. This way, they'd have no advantages and would definitely lose. With everything set in motion, a Jin rebellion would be easy to pull off, and Tu Su would be furious. He's laughing maniacally while Shu starts to recognize that grin. Shu knows that Che Muwen is going to face serious trouble this time. Meanwhile, Chen Yuan is wandering alone in the courtyard, reflecting on the leader giving him these tasks and saying the outcome didn't matter. Suddenly, someone rushes in calling his name. It's Zhao Zu, fuming, claiming it's no coincidence that he pretended to be sick on court day. He grabs him by the collar, accusing him of teaming up with Qi against him. Chen Yuan pushes Zhao Zu's arm away and tells him to quit talking nonsense since he never plotted anything with Qi. The chubby guy demands to know why Tian Yuan was made Grand Chancellor right after he lost his position. Chen Yuan explains that the prince did this to stir up conflict between them. Besides, Tu Su was heading toward Tianjin, so it wasn't the time to squabble over petty issues. But Zhao Zu insists this is important to him, especially since he knows about the women Tian Yuan put next to Tu Yi. One was the national advisor, and the other was in charge of his treasures. Was he really thinking of teaming up with Tu Yi? He then threatens him, claiming he knows who those two women he adopted years ago are, and he's sure Tian Yuan doesn't want Tu Yi to find out. Chen Yuan's face changes. He takes a breath and says he's starting to get where Lord Zhao is coming from. Maybe his earlier actions caused some confusion, and he wants to clear it up now. As he reaches for his shirt, the chubby guy asks what he's up to. He's shocked when Qian Yuan pulls out a golden tiger seal. Qian Yuan says it's exactly what he's thinking. This seal lets him command 30,000 troops in Tianjin. He offers it to Zhao, urging him to take command and not to turn it down. The chubby guy remembers when the emperor was still alive. Before he died, the emperor gave the jade seal to one and the tiger seal to the other to keep balance among the ministers. The jade seal went to Zhao Zuo, making him help the emperor with decisions, while the tiger seal went to Tian Yuan to help control the troops. Because of this, both of them kept some power even after Tu's death, but with Tu Yi's tactics, Zhao Zhu gradually lost all his backing and is now in a tough spot. Chen Yuan mentions that as the one with the tiger seal, he's the only one who poses a threat to the emperor. That's why Tu Yi openly made him Grand Chancellor and wants him to stand against the northern troops. Looking at the seal, he realizes it's a risky move. It would be better to use it to stabilize Zhao Zuo before he does something reckless. However, Zhao Zuo's face shifts, and he asks if Tian Yuan is playing dirty again. He knows that accepting the seal means he'll have to lead the troops against Tu Su in the north. Given how crazy Tu Su was, winning would be impossible. He slaps the seal away and says if Tian Yuan wants someone to die, it should be him. Suddenly, Tian Yuan stops and seriously calls out Zhao's name. He asks if he made this offer so nicely to distract Zhao from his current situation. His imperial seal was broken. He had lost all dignity in front of the officials, and even Shu's had turned against him. At this point, he had no moves left. Confused, Zhao Zu asks if he's being threatened. Chen Yuan takes a quick break, picks up the tiger seal from the ground, and says he's just being honest. Holding onto the tiger talisman is risky, but it's Zhao's only option right now. Talking about playing dirty is just silly, because the plan is pretty straightforward. Since Zhao hasn't completely lost his position and still has the talisman, he can control the Long Zhuang troops. Tianyan shoves it into his friend's mouth, telling him that given their history, this is his last chance. He leaves, waving goodbye and urging him to make the most of the opportunity. Zhao Zhu pulls the object from his mouth, saying he knows taking those troops to war is a death sentence. But Tan Yuan was right, this was his only move, and the issue was he was up against strong opponents, Tou Yi, Tu Su, and Tan Yuan. If that's the case, they shouldn't complain about what he's about to do. The scene shifts to a burning house. A woman cries while holding her child as soldiers walk by with supplies. In the days that followed, Shao Zuo led his troops to loot the villages near Tianjin. One man grabs a soldier's foot, pleading that without food, they won't survive the winter. Seeing this, Zhao Ju calls the soldiers idiots for not handling something so basic. If he hadn't ordered the villages burned, imagine how long it would take to gather these supplies. A soldier tells Zhao that the military actions have been completed. His name is Tang Shu, and he finds it odd that they, who need to fight the rebels, are looting nearby villages even before the battle starts. He pauses and shouts that this looting will leave people unable to survive the winter, damaging their master's reputation. The guards stay silent until Zhao pulls the curtain aside and calls for the commander. He asks if he's questioning his decisions. The man replies that he would never do that. He's just worried this will hurt the soldiers' morale. Zhao Zu asks if, with high morale, they would stand a chance against Tusu's troops. The man hesitates to agree, and Zhao Zuo says that's why he made plans to boost their chances of winning. They would use a scorched earth policy, leaving Tusu's army with nothing to take. Changshu argues that this strategy is pointless since they're robbing their own people. Zhao Zuo responds that because they are His Majesty's people, they must endure and sacrifice. That was the honor of their lives. Already in his carriage, he thanks Tianwan for the army and casually mentions he obviously wouldn't confront Tusu directly. He planned to grab as many resources as he could, and when the rebels showed up, he'd just take off and leave everyone behind. The Chenin dynasty was huge, and he was just curious about where he'd end up next. Outside, all they could hear was his laughter. One of the guys asked the commander what their next move should be. The commander says that as long as Zhao Zu has the tiger talisman, they have to follow his orders. But he hints that he has a plan for dealing with the situation. Meanwhile, in the woods, Xiao was sprinting across the treetops and spotted the burned villages in the distance. She realized this was all the foolish emperor's doing. Out of nowhere, a guy pops up from the bushes, and she turns to ask who it is. With his hands up, he asks if she's with the Zhenbai army and says he means no harm. He's just there to pass along orders from Commander Wan, who's been waiting for her. Xiao wants to know what he needs from her. The guy explains that the Longxing guards aren't enemies of Prince Ju Su, and the supplies they left behind show that. In that moment, Xiao realizes why things had been so easy. The soldier looks at the village and says that sadly, the other supplies they were supposed to leave were taken from there. She asks if the foolish emperor did this, and he says no. It was Zhao Zu's doing, who held the tiger talisman, making the commander powerless. He'd been stripping the area around Chanjing of resources to starve Chuju's army. That's why his commander told him to head there and team up with the Zhenbai troops. Xia takes a moment and says she gets it. He asks what she plans to do, and she whistles. An eagle comes over, and she explains she can't confirm what he said, but she'll pass the info to the prince, and he can decide for himself. She sends the eagle off, and he asks if she's not going to deliver the message herself. Zhao says she has more important things to handle. She disappears, saying they'll meet again soon. A flag goes up in front of the city walls. Someone's watching everything, and it's clearly Chu Yi. With his imaginary binoculars, he says that finally, everything is under his control. Looking at the troops, he sees that Zhao Zu took all the trained soldiers, leaving only those who can't fight. Seeing how ready his brother's army is, he's excited to watch it all get wrecked, but he starts to feel like something's off. He heard his brother had 100,000 soldiers, but it looks like way fewer are here. Is it possible his brother thinks he's so useless that he decided to attack with only part of his army? Then something grabs his attention. It's his brother riding in on a horse. He wonders why the attack hasn't kicked off yet, and why his brother is coming alone. Spotting a soldier getting an arrow ready, Tu Yi questions if that jerk isn't scared. He rushes over and tells the soldier to put that arrow away. From the wall, he yells for him to lower that damn bow. If Tosu gets killed, who else will take down the Qian dynasty? But of course, Tusu hears everything from below and just laughs. He calls out to Tu Yi, asking if he's finally become the foolish emperor he always wanted it to be, someone who just chases pleasure and ignores the rules. Our guy, feeling all smug, says everyone is really talking about him, until his brother tells him he's gone too far pretending to be a foolish emperor hiding his kindness behind a mask. Suddenly, the flags stop waving. Tu Yi pauses, confused about what just happened. His brother mentioned kindness, but he has no clue what that means. He wonders if Tu Hu is talking about himself. Wait, this doesn't make sense. Then he suddenly stops and says he gets it now. His brother was using a tactic of coming alone, pretending to mean no harm. Those words were meant to throw him off. He doesn't want to kill the city's soldiers, hoping Tu Yi will surrender without a fight. The catch is that surrendering won't complete the challenge, which needs the city to be taken, so this has to end in a battle. He then shouts that his brother likes to call himself a god of war. Yet right before the fight, he wants to have formal talks on the front lines. His brother calls him my emperor and shakes his head saying no, but he notes that Tu Yi's tongue is as sharp as ever. But if we're talking ceremonies, it's time for the big show, so he tells them to raise the flags. Tu Yi senses something's off. The army gets their orders, and Tu Su asks why they're here. The soldiers yell that they're out to punish Zhao Zu and clean up the court. Everyone starts chanting while Tu Su watches Tu Yi for his reaction. He even winks, reminding him he hasn't forgotten his promise. Clearly this mess means Tu Su Yi's mission is a bust, making Tu Su the rightful heir. With the Emperor and troops steady, Hu Yi scores 5,000 points, bringing his total to 5,900. The poor guy looks like a skeleton, struggling to wrap his head around it all. As the troops chant to take down Zhao Zuo, the chubby man runs away, apologizing to the puppet emperor. But he won't help Tusu wipe out this place. He waves goodbye, saying he's taking charge now, and leaving them to finish the job. Tu Yi collapses behind the wall. Now that Tusu called him emperor, his position is officially recognized. Tusu opens his arms, saying he came to the capital to congratulate him on becoming emperor. After all, they agreed on this 10 years ago. Tu Yi would stay on the throne as emperor, while his brother fought on the front lines. For Tusu, being an emperor felt worse than death. The throne and title felt like chains that kept him from living freely. But his brother kept that old promise, and now he's finally free. Tu Yi stutters trying to speak, then he insists he didn't do any of this and it's not his fault. So he suggests they drop it and asks if they plan to kill Zhao Zuo. His brother laughs, asking who Tu Yi thinks he is. That was pretty obvious. Zhao Zuo forged a decree to try to kill him, and even used the Tiger Talisman to wreak havoc here. He had already sent 80,000 troops north against Zhao Zuo. It wouldn't be long before Zhao Zuo's head was delivered as a gift for Tu Yi's coronation. Suddenly, Tusu's expression shifts, and he wonders where his brother is. Did he really practice all those words just to look strong? That's when someone shows up at the gate. Tu Yi bolts out on horseback, making a run for it. Yan figured out that Zhao Zu was behind all this mess with a tiger talisman, which explained why his brother hadn't attacked. It was really up to him to take that jerk out. The scene cuts to another part of the city, where some soldiers are holding back. Zhao Zu is punishing a commander, saying this is for secretly meeting with Tusu's men and betraying everyone by siding with the rebels. What he did went against the Emperor of Qian and clearly broke his trust. A crime like that deserved to see his whole family executed. After all that, the Chubai looks completely worn out. Then someone calls out to the commander, and Zhao Zu asks if they can't stand watching this anymore. This wasn't a place anyone could just walk into. He turns to the commander and asks if he plans to have his soldiers invade and kill him to take control. The commander hesitates for a moment and tells the soldier to back off and leave. The guy tries to speak, but Zhao Zu yells again, saying as the Longxing army, they have to follow the Tiger Talisman. The talisman stands for the emperor, so how could they turn against the kingdom? Zhao Zu steps closer and says that going against him is like going against the emperor, so it's better to leave. The commander then tells the guy to get out right now, but Zhao Zu stops him, saying he won't let someone who invaded the tent just walk away. He disrespected authority and was plotting treason. By law, the punishment for that is death. He walks up to the guy and says he'll think of a fitting punishment, maybe cutting him up or roasting him like a pig, or the easiest way, slitting his throat. But suddenly, someone grabs Zhao Zu's arm. Everyone turns to look, and it's Tu Yi right behind him, ready to take out this scumbag. Tu Yi yells at Zhao Zu to stop pushing his luck, or he'll end up dead right here. The chubby man turns around confused and asks why he would die. Tu Yi grabs his head and tells him to look over there. He points into the distance and asks if Zhao Zu can see what's coming. It's 80,000 northern soldiers, marching to take him out, shouting to cleanse the court and execute Zhao Zuo. The chubby guy starts wondering if he's walked into a trap. While Tu Yi cuts the ropes, he comments on how. In this crucial moment, Zhao Zuo lost all support from the Longsheng camp. His knack for courting disaster was truly unmatched. If Sui hadn't shown up when he did, there would have been no way to save him. As Sui cuts the ropes, Zhao Zhu mutters that this can't be real. Suddenly, he starts laughing, saying he gets it now and almost fell for such a dumb trick. Clearly, Tu Yi wasn't going to help him out. He must have escaped the chaos in Qiongjing, which is why he's here. Tu Yi looks puzzled, but Zhao Zhu insists, saying the whole purge story nearly convinced him. But he knows if Tusu had really given that order, Tu Yi would have been the first to go. He charges at them with his sword, scaring the two guys, but someone comes in from the side and hits him. The commander shouts Yuan Hu's name, and Zhao Zhu turns, thinking this guy must also be looking for trouble. With a swing from below, Zhao Zhu takes him out, and the poor guy collapses lifelessly. Tu just stands there as Zhao Zhu points his sword at him, demanding he obey. Zhao Zhu says that when they leave the camp, he'll present Tu Yi's head to the emperor as a big win. But Tu Yi calmly calls out Zhao Zhu's name, making Zhao ask what he wants. Zhao Zhu warns Tu Yi to stop calling himself the emperor because now it's him, the great Zhao Zhu, who decides if Tu Yi lives or dies. Anyone who stands in his way in court will be eliminated, including the concubines. However, since Tu Yi would soon be dead, he didn't need to stress too much. He claims that the women he put near Tu Yi were just tools to spy on him, especially Shu, whom he calls a second-hand woman sent to many men. When a tool like that turns on its master, it loses its worth and only has one outcome. It needs to be destroyed and wiped out. But Tu Yi, radiating his presence, keeps repeating Zhao's name. He says it over and over, slowly turning toward the chubby man. Then he punches him in the face, sending him crashing to the ground. Zhao gets back up dazed, as Tu Yi comes closer. Tu Di calls him a filthy pig, saying everything Zhao does is always cruel. He declares he's had enough and punches him in the chest, saying he's fed up with this whole situation. He punches Zhao in the face, saying he doesn't care about this mission anymore since it's already a bust. And with a kick to the groin, he curses the system and tells it to go to hell. Zhao is rolling on the ground in pain. Tu Yi demands that he repeat what he said about tools that don't match their master anymore. They need to be destroyed. He admits he was so scared of leaving heirs behind that he avoided certain things. This would help keep the empire going, which he didn't want, so he worked out every day. He even went 3 days without sleep while making those clothes. He even had to pick up the curse language of this world, and still, they had the nerve to call him useless. The chubby guy stumbled out of the tent, bouncing his way outside. He fell to the ground with his arms out, totally confused by what Tu Yi had been saying. That's when he noticed soldiers staring at him. He turned and asked why they were just standing there, telling them to protect him. But the soldiers acted like they didn't see anything. Zhao started shaking when he saw Tu Yi stepping out of the tent, with soldiers making way for him. In that moment, Zhao noticed something in Tu Yi's eyes. From the start, he had been wrong. He slammed his head into the ground, realizing he had learned his lesson. Tu Yi asks what he was wrong about. Zhao admits he shouldn't have treated the troops like they were his personal property. Tu Yi puts his hand on him, and Zhao confesses he also shouldn't have run from the battlefield. Our guy grabs him by the hair while Zhao keeps saying he learned his lesson and was wrong. Tu Yi then says that wealth, power, army, or the throne, none of that mattered to him. All he wanted was to trust people and have them do their jobs. But everyone betrayed him. Zhao, confused, asks what trust he means and who betrayed him. Tu Yi simply tells him to say it out loud. Totally confused, Zhao hesitantly says, "I betrayed him." Tu Yi punches him in the face and tells him to shout it. He then screams for everyone to hear that he betrayed the emperor. Plus, he betrayed the whole Qian dynasty. He betrayed the people of Qian by stealing from them and making them suffer. He really was a sinner of this dynasty. After a moment of hesitation, he slams his face into the ground, pleading for forgiveness. Tu just lets out a sigh. Looking up, he complains about being tired while Zhao keeps smashing his face into the dirt, admitting his guilt. Suddenly, Zhao's face shifts as he grabs a knife, insisting he would never behave like that. As Tu Yi turns around, Zhao lunges at him. Blood splatters, but it's unclear if he actually hit Tu Yi. Zhao looks all twisted up, and it's hard to read his expression. But Xiao, who had been quietly watching, strikes him on the back of the neck. Tu Yi glances at her and comments that she finally decided to act. Confused, Xiao wonders if he knew she was with the army the whole time. He looks at her, and the system tells him that the Kung Guard leader is struggling, unsure whether to stay loyal to Tu Su or Tu Yi. Holding Zhao, Xiao is trying to figure out if Hu Yi knew everything from the beginning. Xiao collapses, and Xiao says he's not dead, just unconscious, but she knows exactly what Tu Di plans to do with him. Our boy is deep in thought. From the start, he thought Zhao would help him take down the empire, but he was totally wrong. He realized he had to take charge and handle things himself. So he tells Xiao that Zhao fate is now in the hands of the Longsheng army. He no longer has any use for him. With this, he takes out a traitor of the Zhao Empire, earning another 5,000 national points. Xiao stands there, amazed at how he managed everything on his own. By himself, he stopped Zhao, regained military power, and avoided a civil war in the Kaiyang dynasty. As she watches him walk away with his 900 points, she wonders who he really is. Meanwhile, the other army is getting closer. One of the soldiers raises his arm, telling everyone to get ready because Zhao troops are just ahead. Then one of them points and tells General Wang to take a look. He turns curious and looks confused. There was a troop carrying someone impaled on a spear, with their tongue hanging out, apparently hanged and displayed on a banner. The scene shifts to someone shouting Shu's name, calling her a coward and filthy. She's running when a hand grabs her foot, causing her to fall flat on her face. She spins around and hears someone call her sister, asking why she's ignoring them. It's a skeleton asking if she forgot them and why she hasn't avenged them. She needs to survive and take out Zhao. As she tries to run, a bunch of skulls grab at her, trying to pull her back. In front of her stands a huge, terrifying Zhao Zuo, calling her name. He accuses her of betrayal, saying a tool that turns on its master deserves the same fate as the rest. Suddenly, there's an explosion right in front of her. When the smoke clears, she spots a sword aimed at Zhao Zuo's head. Looking up, she sees the towering figure of Tu Ye. She calls out, "Your Majesty," and then hears a voice calling her name. She wakes up in bed, and a girl tells her that His Majesty is back safe and sound. He's getting ready to call all the ministers to the Grand Hall. Also, Jiaozu has been executed. Shu cries out, overwhelmed, saying it's finally over. The next day, after everything that went down, our guy returned to Kanjing to accept congratulations. But he's thinking that the plan is to take this cursed country down. But what has he really destroyed so far? The whole court is running smoothly. The Heron was way too loyal, and there wasn't even a femme fatale to suddenly take him out. Tushu and his troops were set on keeping him in power. Even Tian Yuan, who was meant to be his secret weapon, had calmed down after everything with Zhao Zuo. With all these big players around, the nation's power had shot up past 15,000. So how was he supposed to bring this country down? Right next to him, Tian Yuan wonders why the boy doesn't look happy after getting rid of Zhao Zuo. He looks back and sees Tusu staring, making a throat-slitting gesture. Chuyuan realizes Toei isn't happy because he's still alive. The delicate balance between the three factions is gone. Tui is already on Tui's side, leaving only Tinyuan's side undecided, making him the next target. Maybe it was time for him to take a stand. Toei looks confused when Tianyuan says he wants to talk about something. He heard the emperor personally went to the army and executed Zhao Zuo himself. That really made everyone there happy. But it was clear that Zhao Zuo only had control over the troops because 2D let him keep the Tiger Talisman. He messed up by letting that happen, so it was his fault. That's why Tian Yuan was ready to accept any punishment, even resigning as Grand Chancellor to set an example. Tu just tells him to be quiet, because he doesn't want to hear excuses right now. Meanwhile, he thinks about how sneaky this guy is, blaming the dead at the first chance he gets. 2D then mentions he's interested in an unknown journey across the Qianna dynasty. And when he gets back, they'll talk about him losing his position. Chan Yuan is confused. The court had just settled down, so why was Tu Yi suddenly wanting to leave? He tries to ask His Majesty to think again, but Tu Yi quickly asks if he's really going to tell him what to do. Chan Yuan quickly changes his tone, saying he wouldn't dare. Tu Yi knows he can't count on anyone in this dynasty to take it down, which is why he needs outside help. He knows of a really strong tribe in Kanglang to the north, so fierce that even the southern regions have a hard time dealing with them. To the south, across the sea, there's the nation of Jing. There, a leader named Shu Lai has been attacked many times by Tu Yi's father, but has never been beaten. Plus, there's the Red Sleeve Army, with tons of followers spread everywhere. Since the first two options are too far, maybe the best bet is to find the Red Sleeve Army and get them to attack this nation. The Emperor of Qian would become a spy for the rebels who would tear everything down. It was exactly the kind of story he liked. Meanwhile, Chen Yuan notices the prince smirking again. The scene shifts to a torch being raised in front of the Red Sleeve Army's barracks. Inside, several guys wearing weird masks are dancing, some talking about bad news and others about good news. A girl sits surrounded by candles and says that 3 months ago, the new emperor took the throne and caused chaos in the court. Unfortunately, the Qian dynasty's luck hasn't run out yet. That girl was Wu Dongshuan. She must be the leader of the Red Sleeve Army. And honestly, their sleeves were black, but let's not focus on that. It's probably just a translation mistake. She wants to know what the bad news is. The Red Sleeve Army is also called the Hangzhou Army. At that moment, several shadowy figures turn to see who's coming. It was our buddy Tu Yi, casually strolling through the city with Qiao. She warns that the north is in chaos, and even Tushu is having a hard time dealing with it. Tu Yi replies that she's already reminded him to be careful 8,000 times on their way. The only thing Tu Yi finds strange is that he knows Longsing City. It's where the Tu family first built their power. 500 years ago, Tu family ancestors took down a dragon and showed its head in this area. Since then, the Tu family has grown more powerful until they founded the Qian dynasty. The Longxing region has always been significant, but lately, various forces have started to settle there. He knows his dad and brother love war, so why did they let the Red Sea Army set up there? Yunichu insisted he take Xiao with him, not letting him go alone. The issue was that it wasn't just Xiao. A bunch of guys were trailing him, and he wondered why they couldn't blend in better. One of the guys turns and asks if the king is staring at them too much. Maybe he's figured out he's being followed. Another guy gives a thumbs up, saying he used some special magic, so they won't be spotted. Xiao chimes in, telling Tianyuan he hasn't lost his minister position yet and should be in the capital handling things. Tianyuan replies that the king is clever, and being left in that minister role puts him in a tough spot. That's because Tusu is still in the capital, which is a big risk for him. That's why Tianjin is dangerous, and the best move is to stay there and secretly serve the king. Chu says she doesn't get it, and he replies that it's fine, because she'll understand eventually. As long as they keep up their disguise, it shouldn't be an issue. But from Tu Yi's expression, it's clear their cover isn't foolproof. Tu Yi says they can do whatever they want. If they're so set on following him, it doesn't bother him. Suddenly, Cho pushes him behind her. Tu Yi looks ahead and sees a group of small-time bandits blocking their way. Looks like they're part of the Red Sleeve Army. A bald guy with a saber says he hasn't seen them around and asks if they're from Suicide. Maybe it comes from the Imperial Court. Cho gets ready to fight, but Tuti tells her to hold on and wait. He thinks he's lucky to find them so easily and wonders where their leader is. Before long, they're already heading up the stairs to the group's base. The lively Dongshuan is sitting there among candles, casually munching on some scorpions. What's going on here? Dongshuan, the leader, is really skilled in magic and can manipulate people's hearts. She's been gathering refugees from all over to help her take down the Chan dynasty. Weird creatures are even crawling out of her mouth, oh my. Licking her lips, she says he's brave to show up in Longsing like this. Tu Yi asks if the Prince of the Black Sleeve Army isn't the one who welcomes refugees, so he didn't need courage for this. But she replies that given his appearance, she doubts they're refugees. No matter how he tries to hide his identity, his actions give him away. Plus, the woman next to him looks like someone who lurks in the shadows and spills blood. Tugi praises her, saying it's no surprise the great leader of the army noticed right away. He then claims he's a secret envoy from Jing, sent by His Majesty to stir up trouble in the Qian nation. Remember, Jing is the country across the sea to the south. He says he's specifically here to seek a partnership with the Black Sleeve Army. Suddenly, something crashes to the ground, startling him. Dong soon turns and says, "Cooperation sounds great." She walks up to him, saying that now that he's revealed himself, she doesn't need to hide anymore. She touches a strange spot and mentions he must be interested in the dragon root hidden in the Qian Empire. He's confused since she just touched him in a weird spot and brought up the dragon root. Is she talking about him? And has he really been exposed? She explains that everyone knows the dragon root is about to resurface, which is why Jing is also involved. He still doesn't quite get it. Dongshin explains that every 500 years, the Qian nation has a dragon emperor. Whoever manages to behead him and collect the root will gain the emperor's power and the ability to dominate the world. The last dragon emperor showed up when a guy from the Tu family took his head and used that power to start a huge dynasty. Back then, Tu Tianxia and his buddy Chu took down the dragon together. But all Chu got were scars. It turned into a total mess, and that's when they both went off to create their own nations. With the dragon's power, Tu Tianxia built the Grand Qian nation up north, while Chu used what was left in the south to form the Jing dynasty. Now, 500 years later, a new dragon emperor has arrived. Whoever takes his head will change everything. The system tells Tu Yi he's found the way to the dragon emperor's aura, and now he needs to learn more from this girl to keep moving forward. He's pumped. Visiting the Red Sleeve Army was definitely the right call. He asks Dongshuan if she's also after the Dragon Emperor's aura to take over the world, but she replies that she's got a rebellious streak and isn't interested in being an empress. Still, she knows the Jing nation has been eyeing this for over 500 years. She leans in and says these lands are under her control, so with her help, winning would be a lot easier. But while holding his chin, she wants to know what she gets out of helping the Jing nation. Tu Yi isn't naive. He looked into her background before coming here. Dongshuan used to be from the Feng nation, where her village was wiped out during the war against Qian. In all that chaos, she met an immortal who taught her medicine and magic, which she used to help others who suffered like her. Little by little, she built a name for herself among the refugees and started the Red Sleeve Army, aiming to take down the Chan nation. Tu had read about many people like her in books, lonely souls pushed by war. He knows she's acting all mysterious and strange, but it's just a cover to survive in these tough times. Tu Yi then says he's here to talk about teaming up and brings two promises. The first is to take down the Qian kingdom, which they both want. Dongshuan replies that she knows the Jing nation wants to unify the world. So the fall of Qian wasn't really a promise. It was something that was bound to happen. Tu Yi says that's why he has a second promise. His leader wants to be seen as a wise figure for all time, and to do that, he plans to reform the laws to create heaven on earth. Basically, he wants to create peace in the world. Dongshun blushes a bit and sits up straight when she hears this. Tu Yi clears his throat and says he'll go over the main ideas for the government he wants to set up. He plans to use a bunch of modern ideas to impress these ancient folks. While he talks, someone is watching from a distance. Xian Yuan can't figure out why Tu Yi wanted to meet with Dongshuan right now. The worst part is, he can't fix what they're discussing. He asks Xiao to use some magic so they can eavesdrop on the conversation. Xiao explains that their opponent is also really skilled in magic, and being this close could be risky. She starts folding an origami figure, suggesting there might be a way to handle it. Then she casts a shadow capture spell. A small creature zooms to a tree right behind Qi Yi and lands there. Qi Yi is chatting with Dongshuan about improving lives through land reforms, farming, and similar ideas. He talks about boosting trade, resource flow, and setting up education and tech. Chan Yuan wonders why it sounds so jumbled, and Chao says they're too far away. Still, Tian Yuan agrees it's about governance, and there's some wisdom in it. But it still seems too vague and unrealistic for this time. Then, the origami relays the phrase, "All men are born equal." Xia smiles, saying that equality for everyone is a nice thought. However, Tian Yuan feels desperate when he hears that. He recalls a guy named Xing Liu, who tried to stand up to the nobility and was torn apart by 5 horses. If everyone were treated equally, it would lead to the downfall of the Qin dynasty. The nobles and the emperor would be doomed with no way out. He's about to say this would be the end, but then he notices Tu Yi is still talking. Everyone around him is smiling as they listen, which makes Chang'e pause and think. He admits it's really shameful. While he and Zhao Ju were scheming to take down the king, Tu Yi was aiming to better the world for everyone. Meanwhile, Tu Yi raises his arms, looking exhausted. He's worn out from all the talking, and people even bring him water. Dongshun praises him, saying his ideas are really appealing, and if they worked, it would be like paradise on earth. He grins, saying he knew she would get it. But then her face shifts, and she asks if he really thinks she's that dumb. Who would buy into such nonsense? The Qian nation would never put those policies in place or make such promises. Tu Yi is taken aback, demanding to know who he really is. She already figured out he wasn't from the Jing nation. That's because when Lord Chu started the Jing nation in the south, he needed allies to gain more power. The Jing nation has always been linked to the strongest clans and nobles there, so making promises like that was just silly. Tu Yi realizes he might have promised things that were too ambitious and didn't know about Jing's background. He frantically tries to think of a way to dodge a beating. Then Shou steps in front of him, telling everyone to back off. Dongshuan asks what would happen if she said no. They had entered Red Sleeve Army territory, and if they didn't explain themselves, it would all be over. It was better to just come clean about who they really were. To Yi then admits he didn't expect her to see through him, but he really is from the Chan nation. Dongshuan replies that she already knew. The people of Zhang were the ones she despised the most. Tu Yi quickly asks her to hold on. Even though he's from Qian like her, he wants to see this nation fall. Shan Yuan is shocked. She says the emperor seems to be in trouble and asks if they should go rescue him. Chen Yuan answers that for now, it's best to trust his majesty. He must have some kind of plan. Still, he's really curious to see how his majesty plans to convince Dongzhuan in a situation like this. Then Tu Yi boldly claims he's the Grand Chancellor and Prime Minister of the Zhang Nation, named Lai Qianyuan. The real Lai Qianyuan is shocked, completely confused by what's going on. Dongzhuan, puzzled, asks if he's really Qianyuan. Tu Yi confidently replies that he always dreamed of taking Tu Yi's throne and creating a nation of equality. That's why he served that old man, Tianjin, like a dog. At last, the old man is gone. Dongsun mentions she heard the emperor passed away recently, and that 2 ministers, Tianyuan and Zhao Zuo, were backing a useless prince named Tu Yi. Then, out of nowhere, Tusu shows up and backs Tu Yi's claim to power. Tu Yi agrees, saying that's exactly what went down, and he has no clue why Tusu acted like that. Dongshuan adds that she also heard Zhao Zuo got executed, while Tianyuan kept his job. But it looks like he lost all his power and even ended up locked up by Tu Yi. Tu Yi, sticking to his role, says that annoying Tu Yi really tried to take him out, but he barely got away from Tianjin. Dongshuan thinks for a second, and mentions she heard Chan Yuan was super smart and talented. That makes sense, given the government plans he laid out. But she also heard Chan Yuan was quite a bit older. Tu Bi quickly claims he has tricks to keep his skin youthful. But that's not what's important. What really matters is that as long as that fool Tu Yi is on the throne, his ideas for ruling won't see the light of day. Dongshuan asks if he's trying to copy Xingliu from history, the minister who betrayed the emperor, but she knows that story ends with him getting the dragon root and becoming the emperor himself. Tu Yi raises his hands and denies it. Dongshuan still looks skeptical and says for now, they'll hold off on this talk of working together. First, she needs to deal with something else. The rat's hiding around here. Xia quickly realizes they've been caught, but as she tries to move, Dongshuan is already next to her, asking if they were enjoying eavesdropping. Xia digs into her pocket, trying to grab a runaway talisman, but Dongshuan spots her, spinning around on the ground, impressed by Xia's talent with talismans. However, she says it's a shame Xia isn't strong enough to take her on. Lightning strikes as Dongshuan unleashes her 8-direction attack. Xia's hat gets burned to ashes, leaving her completely fried. Just as Tianyuan tries to step in, Dongshuan's hand is already on his shoulder, commenting that he has a very interesting subordinate. With such a strong protector, he must be something special. She smiles, saying she's lucky to have found 2 impressive people today. Seeing all this, Tu Yi realizes his plan has totally fallen apart, and why is that kid drooling so much? Dongsu then asks straight up, who exactly are you? Tae starts thinking he just pretended to be Tian Yun. Would Tian Yun really try to be Tae Yun? But that wouldn't make sense with such a big age gap. He knows he can't say something that dumb. Meanwhile, Tian Yun starts to shake as he tries to speak. In a flashback, an old man asks Tian why he wants to study. Tian Yuan explains that his dad was a scholar, and he read tons of books from a young age. Back then, he just soaked up knowledge without questioning it. He told his dad he just wanted to read, never thinking about a bigger purpose. His dad replied that he should aim to make a difference in the world, help people, and carry on the teachings of the wise. That was the path scholars were meant to follow. But his dad wasn't as noble as those wise men. All that talk about making a difference was just a way to get what he wanted. What his dad really wanted was to be remembered. This left Tianyuan deep in thought. The old man said life is so short that in less than 100 years, everyone fades away and turns to dust. Only by being remembered in history can someone live on, just like past scholars. Through the teachings left behind, one could achieve immortality. Even though Tianyuan didn't like his dad's words, they gave him some direction in life. But good times didn't last. Horses came charging in, and the whole village was set ablaze. War had clearly reached their land. That's when he realized that being a scholar meant nothing when faced with life and death. Everything he had dedicated himself to felt like a joke. He turned and saw a man in a tree begging for help, saying he hadn't eaten in 3 days. The old man kept pleading until Chan Yuan came over and offered him something. The man quickly grabbed it, and Tian Yuan told him to take his time eating. He thought no one would take it from him. But when he looked around, he saw countless starving people surrounding him. One of them asked if he had more food, and another said that if he had some to give, he must have enough for everyone. Suddenly, they rushed toward him, shouting for him to give them everything, because they were starving. Then someone stepped in front of him. It was his dad, and Chiemiwen was confused about what was happening. His dad looked back and smiled. But Qianyuan stepped on a rock and fell down the mountain. As he got up, he heard the hungry people say that the man didn't have enough food, but they could eat him instead. From below, he only heard his dad screaming for them to stop. In that moment, he finally got what his dad meant that day. Studying wasn't meant for people like them or anyone really. Learning was about making your mark, not teaching others, but being a powerful figure that controls millions. With that, he became prime minister while still young. Looking at the emperor in the coffin, he noted that the old emperor had also passed away. In the end, he was just a useful pawn. He turned to the doctors and asked what good they were if they couldn't even save the emperor. Chen Yuan mentioned that shedding blood at the emperor's funeral was not right. They should all be buried with him. Amidst the hail and the screams, he stood there, frozen. Then Zhao Ju came up and said the emperor's last wish was for Tusu to take the throne. So what would they do now? Chen Yuan replied that the emperor's name was now just a part of history. The chance had come to them. In the Kaiyang Empire, he would rise above everyone and lead this world. Back in the present, Dongshuan asked what he was thinking about and demanded an answer. Who is he really? At that moment, Tu Yi wondered if Tian Yuan might be pretending to be Chu Yi, but their ages didn't match at all. Tu Yi started to speak and suddenly took off his hat, introducing himself as the emperor of Kaiyang to Kanjin. Clearly, he was supposed to be the dead father of our boy, who was now in shock. He said he hadn't actually died, while Tu Yi stood there, trying to make sense of it all. Dongshuan stood silently, boiling with anger. She grabbed him by the neck, demanding to know if he was making fun of her. Tu Yi, still holding his axe, knew that Fengshuan despised the Kaiyang dynasty deeply. If he wasn't desperate, he wouldn't risk his life coming here. He says he hates that rebellious kid Todi, blaming him for everything. That ungrateful son was super ambitious and sly, always acting like an idiot when he really wasn't. Their dad thought he was the biggest loser among his sons. In the background, Xiao is about to blow up. How dare this jerk take the emperor's title at a time like this? Tu Dai, pretending to be the former emperor, says he never thought his son would team up with a bunch of ministers to plot for the throne, a scheme that went on for years, even dragging Zhao Zuo into it. Dongxuan starts to wonder why all these court secrets are coming out today. Tu Yi goes on, claiming the only one who stayed loyal was Tuan Yuan, who is actually Tu Yi, pretending to be Tian Yuan. When Tu Yi decided to grab all the power, he had to fake his death and run away. He kept Tani in the court to stir up trouble between Tu Di and Zhao Zuo, but everything fell apart. That's because his other ungrateful son, Tu Su, helped Tu Yi kill Zhao Zuo and set up the court. Now Qiao is even more furious. This guy isn't just ruining Tu Yi's name, but also trashing Tu Su's. She vows that this guy will soon meet the same fate as Zhao Zuo. Dongxuan coldly asks if he ran here like a whipped dog. In her grip, he begs, still calling Tu Yi pretend to be Tian Yuan, a cruel minister for so long. He says he even insulted the emperor on his own and went through a lot. Xiao was ready to take him down when Tu Yi suddenly clasps his hands. He says insulting his majesty was a necessary evil, and he deserves to die 1,000 times. Xiao's anger cools down. She sees that the boy is ready to work with Qian Yuan. Dong Su throws him to the ground, saying she doesn't care because her hatred for the Qian dynasty will never fade. They stepped into her territory, so of course, they wouldn't leave without a scratch. To Yi slowly gets up, saying he's just a man who lost his throne. And while she could kill him, he knows that's not her best move. The Qian dynasty would still be around, and offing a king who's lost his crown wouldn't give her the satisfaction she craves. Dongxuan pauses and agrees. Killing just one wouldn't be enough. She wanted to watch the family tear itself apart, the whole nation fall apart, the country ruined, and the bloodline erased. Shan Yuan looks scared, but Tu Yi is secretly thrilled, thinking that the nation's destruction is the best outcome. For Tu Yi, acting like his father was the ideal strategy. This way he wouldn't be killed, since Dongxuan would want to use him to create chaos. Calling himself the Destroyer, he figures he can truly count on someone as clever as he is. Dongxun then asks if, apart from wanting the Dragon Emperor's power, he also wants her troops backing. Tu Yi admits he does. Since the Qian Kingdom's army is the second strongest, they could take down the dynasty together. But Dongxun interrupts, telling him to stop dreaming. While she would love to see the two families fall apart, using her army to aid the enemy is too much, and she'll never do that. Tu Yi laughs and suggests that if Dongxuan won't help him, why not assist Chan Yuan instead? Suddenly, Tu Yi looks completely stunned. He says that after everything with his sons, he's done with the throne. Dongxuan seems doubtful, but he insists he wants to get rid of his ungrateful sons and put someone on the throne who cares about the people. He claims Chang Yuan is the right choice for that. The soldiers around them, tired of this whole story, just sit down, waiting to see what happens next. Dongxuan also sighs, tired of all the chatter, and tells them to toss him to the dogs. Tu Yi, pretending to be Tian Yuan, quickly says he can prove who he is. He shows the imperial seal, a gift meant for the future successor and the new empress. Dongxuan looks confused for a moment, wondering when she became the empress. But she starts to realize that everything he said might actually be true. Tu Yi stands there, completely crushed, while Tang Yuan, still in disguise as Tu Yi, says this is a wedding gift. Suddenly, a hand grabs Hu Yi's shoulder. Dongxuan smirks and says that given everything he told her, he doesn't seem like such a bad guy. She liked his ideas for running the country, so he was worthy of being her man. Without wasting any time, she says it's time for them to consummate the marriage. Chan Yuan tries to speak, but she elbows him hard in the neck. Before he can protest, she scoops him up bridal style, carrying him off while telling Xiao not to worry. She wouldn't treat her master poorly, or maybe Xiao would want to join them in the wedding chamber. Xiao turns bright red and yells for that pervert to shut up. As Tian Yuan is carried away, he realizes everything now hinges on his majesty. He needs to become the true dragon. Tuji can't let anyone down since Tian Yuan's chance to make history is in his hands. Later that night, Xiao is nearby when someone tells her to chill out and step back for a moment. It seems Xiao stuck around to see what would happen, and things definitely got wild. The ceremony was long, and the roosters were already crowing. The door creaks open, and Dongxuan steps out, stretching. Shu scoffs at who shoots back an angry glare. Then they spot someone dragging himself out of the room. It's Tianyuan, or rather, Tu Yi, looking like a walking skeleton, even losing his hair. He pulls himself along, feeling completely drained. But for the sake of taking down the nation, any sacrifice was worth it. He's just amazed at how daring Tianyuan was to not only bring the imperial seal but also betray him like that. The future looks bright. Dong tells him to stop mulling over the past because it's time to head to the barracks and start planning. The poor guy, still a bit dazed, wonders if they're really starting this early. In the mountains, someone carries a torch. It's their group moving through a cave, and Dongshuan says they're almost there. Tu Yi feels a weird vibe about all this. Suddenly, they see the exit, and Dongshuan announces they're finally about to meet them. Everyone is shocked by what they see. Beyond the cave and between the mountains, Dongshuan shows the beggars hiding at the base of the Red Sleeve Army. It's not just battle-hardened soldiers making weapons. There are way too many people. Xiao quietly notes that there are too many people here. It's hard to believe they're all part of the army. Dongshuan was watching the Shanhe Society, the Yuan Tian group, alliance members, and even the Shalun sect. The beggars were there too. She explained that all these groups, both small and large rebel factions, used to be part of the Chan Nation. But the Khan Guard was there too. Tui quickly figured out he was right in the middle of the rebels who despised him the most. Everyone was staring at him, and he felt like each one looked more rebellious than the last. Still, he smiled, thinking that Ly Sin had crucial resources to take down his nation. Chan was left speechless. Even surrounded by enemies in their base, Tu Yi walked in confidently, even smiling, looking every bit like someone of royal blood. That's when Chi Haiyan started to wonder if the kid was already aware of the dragon vein and had teamed up with the rebels to take them all out at once. At that moment, someone seemed to catch Tootie off guard. A guy in a bandana came up and said Tootie looked familiar, asking which rebel group he belonged to. Our boy introduced himself as Tianwen, the exiled prime minister of the Chan Nation, and said that next to him was the former emperor Tu Kanjin. The guy laughed and said at least the new brother was pretty funny, but that joke wasn't really that funny. Then Dongshuan stepped in and said that what he was saying wasn't a joke, but the truth. Instantly, everyone greeted her, calling her the great Daoist Dao Zhu. She asked if he was disappointed. Did he really think that just because he was making a deal with her, everyone else there would back him for the same reason? She warned that her army might not support him, and since she's a businesswoman, she wouldn't put all her eggs in one basket. Tu Yi seemed to think this annoying woman wanted him to convince them for nothing. Suddenly, she spread her arms and said she didn't want to be an empress, but she was ready to back anyone who wanted to sit on the dragon throne. This time, those seeking the dragon's power would have a fair shot at competing. Shan Yuan realized this woman was using the dragon event as a trap to draw in all the rebel forces and pick the strongest among them. That would be enough to create a dangerous army to attack Qian, and Dongshan was smiling, thinking that no matter how it turned out, she wouldn't end up losing. Tianyuan wondered if our boy could handle a woman with such a clever strategy. Tugi said not to worry because the more people competing, the more fun it would be. After all, in the end, the outcome would be the same. He thought it didn't really matter who won. What really mattered was finding someone to destroy the cursed nation of Qian. Dong Suan rubbed his chin and said it was no surprise she was starting to like him. He had a confidence she'd never seen before. Even though she had countless men around, none could compare to our boy. An old man with a purple aura asked if the only ones competing against him were from the Jing nation, making Tu Yi wonder if that nation was also getting involved in this mess. Dongshuan said he was naive if he thought the Jing nation wouldn't fight for the dragon vein. According to her calculations, it should be here soon. At the base entrance, a red-haired guy, a super muscular dude, and a Cleopatra-like woman playing a flute show up. Dongshan puts her hands on her hips and asks Chen Siming why he didn't go to greet the Jing nation folks. He says he was with some Taoists and would never go against her, so he brought them himself. Both of them look stunned. Then Chen Siming says he brought the person's head and asks if that's enough. They glance at the three at the entrance, and then he throws the head, which rolls and stops right in front of them, totally lifeless. Dong Suan says she asked him to welcome the guests, so what's up with this? He laughs, steps forward, and claims he can't be blamed for this. It's that guy's fault for being weak, and oops, his head just popped. Dong Shu-an responds that she knows he's unhappy with her role in the group and wants to take it, but causing chaos at such a crucial time is really risky. Nearby, Shou finds it funny that even among the rebels there's a power struggle. Ken Saming insists he's being wrongly accused and that he'll always be loyal to Taoist Daju. He puts his hand on his chest and tells everyone he knows she wants to take down the Qian dynasty, but she doesn't want to be empress. That's why they need to find someone worthy to fill that role. He points to the remains on the ground and says that was Qi Qi Dao, the great prince of the Jing nation. He was known as the top general and led an unstoppable army. That's why he came looking for the dragon's power, but got completely wrecked by the demons from the plains. Tu Yi seems clueless about these plain people, and Cleopatra, who I bet will get a lot of attention later, says they were beaten by her girl named Aina. Cleopatra's name is Aina, and she's the sacred maiden of the plains people, and that thing she's riding looks like her so-called girl. Other rebels point at her, saying those plains demons aren't welcome here. They wanted the dragon's power but were overestimating themselves. Inus looks at them and asks if this pack of dogs is barking at her. She admits that the Qian nation is definitely more prosperous than the plains. But if this place were so great, none of them would be playing rebel dress-up. Oscar looks confused and asks her what she's doing there. The girl then declares that she will conquer the dragon's head and unite the North and South. Anyone who shares the goal of uniting the world under one rule can join them. Everyone seems to be influenced by this idea. Even Dong Xuan thinks that bringing the world together and stopping the chaos could be a solid plan. Qianyuan realizes that unifying the world would create a lasting mark in history. Everyone's chatting about Tu Yi's supposed awesomeness without really getting what's happening. Turns out, it was all brainwashing. He senses something's off with this woman, and it's weird because he can't see her stats on the panel. Here we go, folks. Here's the panel that the artist took 36 minutes to create. Big thanks to the artist. Anna then says anyone wanting to join needs to pass a test, and they only accept the best. Looks like she's borrowing someone's line, and Toyi wraps it up by saying they don't take trash. At that moment, she glances at him, curious how he knows that line. Our guy feels like it's so familiar that he just instinctively replies. A guy grumbles, asking if he's calling everyone trash, and he says he was just helping the girl finish her thought. Then he turns to Anna and asks if she's calling him trash. She replies that she's not talking about him, but that everyone else there is trash. Man, I'm starting to think this girl might have transmigrated, too. People are getting mad at her, ready to attack, saying she'll regret saying that. They rush at her, saying this is the end for her, but Aina just calls Aya, her little monster, and asks for help. The strange creature lets out a loud scream, and suddenly someone gets grabbed by the neck. What was that? A lightning strike hit, and it looks like the guy got disintegrated. But she jumped and punched one guy into another, who got slammed to the ground. People are flying and dying all around. Meanwhile, our guy is pushing his group back, saying a smart man knows when the danger is bigger than their strength. However, Anna spots this and points to Oya, telling them to focus on taking that guy out. Toyi thinks this girl's is so petty. He just helped her finish her sentence, and now he deserves to die. Anna thinks he's the only one not under her influence, so in a main story, he'd be like a mini-boss. Her monster rips off another head and charges at Tu Yi. But Asha activates her escape technique while Dongshuan lands a powerful arcane kick to the monster's head. She warns Anna that she messed up coming to Hongshu's army, thinking she could kill anyone she wanted. That was a major slap in the face to Taoist Daozu. Then, Anna chills out and says not to stress, they're not enemies. She activates her power again, claiming they both want the same thing, to take down the Chen dynasty. That phrase really sticks in Tu Yi's head. He wonders why this is going down and if it's because of this woman's powers. He glances over and sees Dongshuan saying the same thing. While she's in a daze, Anna stands there with a creepy grin. Then she turns and suggests they should take out the former emperor of Qian first. Hearing that, Anna grins. She didn't see the bonus of having the former emperor right there. She's got her sights set on our guy's whole crew, who are always shielded by the women. But at least he's figured out the sacred maiden's power. Everyone has something they're obsessed with, and this woman's power boosts that and aligns it with her goals. Aina then mentions destroying the Chan nation and moving on to take out Tu Kanjin. Under her influence, Dongshuan walks toward Tu Yi, insisting that she will kill him. Tu Bi covers his ears, saying he already knows about her powers and their weaknesses. Suddenly, a hand grabs Dongshuan. It's our guy, saying that man isn't the emperor of Qian anymore. Killing him won't take down the Qian dynasty. Dongshun suddenly halts and starts to cry, or at least that's what it looks like. But Anna seems ready to explode with anger. Since her power relies on talking, all he needs to do is point out its logical flaw. That's how her ability falls apart. But then he suddenly notices something. In the background, she's getting angrier than ever. She asks Dongshuan if her childhood dream wasn't to destroy the Qian dynasty. So why, Now that the target is right in front of her, is she hesitating? Has she lost her determination? Once again, they try to take him out while Dongxuan holds back. Our guy tries to speak up, but there's no time, and he almost gets hit. As he stumbles to the side, he realizes this girl just wants to tackle everything with force. But her power has another issue. He then asks Dongxuan if she'd be happy if two Kaijin were gone. What's her real aim? Is it to take down the Chan nation, or to build a peaceful place in the Central Plains? Totally frozen, Dongxuan starts talking about a peaceful land. Then she starts rambling about death, holding her head in confusion. Meanwhile, Aina wonders what she's doing. Two Korean Joan mention that a person's obsession is rarely just one thing. Dongxuan is a perfect example of that. She was fixated on destroying the Chan nation, but also on creating a peaceful time. But Aina's ability couldn't decide which obsession to boost. At that moment, her wish for a peaceful world was stronger. Aina is puzzled, not getting how this guy knows so much about her and Dongxuan. Then he raises his arm and points at Dongxuan. He says if that woman takes over, the North would invade the central area. So how would she protect the people here? Nami's confidence creates a conflict in her mind that can't be resolved. The only way out is to trigger a system crash. This crash is a bit unusual, but alright. Anna is shocked, and Dongxuan starts to faint until someone catches her. Our guy shows up with his flaming keyboard, claiming he's the debate master who ruled all forums. Anna laughs and points at him, saying it's hilarious that he thinks he can beat her in this situation. Everyone goes quiet for a moment. The monster starts to rise as Anna declares that the former emperor will be spared today. It'd be great to use him as a pawn, but Tu Yi won't make it out alive. Now she's feeling confident. Even though she lost control of Dongxuan, he fainted, so he's defenseless. What she didn't see coming was that two other women would stand up for our boy. But Anna doesn't seem to care, saying taking them out would be as easy as reaching into her pocket. I've never heard that before. The monster charges right at the two. Manon's hand is reaching for a bar boy, and no one's done anything yet. At the last moment, Xiao manages to stab its arm. Then Asha slaps 3 talismans on the monster's face and activates the triple humiliation destruction. What? The movie even has humiliation in the title. Her creature gets thrown away, crashing into tents, leaving Anna confused about what just happened. Who are these two women next to him? Asha says their chance has come, but Xiao warns her to stay alert. Looking at the wreckage, she knows this isn't over. Suddenly, a system window pops up saying the seal has been released. Abyssification is starting, and tons of stats are rising. The system seems to ask Anna if she wants to suppress it. As RV rises with a green aura, she obviously says no. The monster then starts transforming into something like a werewolf. It lets out a roar next to her, saying things are about to get fun. Asha and Xiao wonder if the woman turned into a dog. The group is freaked out and Dongxuan looks out cold. Wake up, girl. The two stand frozen when suddenly the creature lunges and knees Asha right in the face. Whoa, man. Don't hit the girl like that. Xiao looks to the side and nearly gets hit too. But the wolf keeps coming, throwing a flurry of attacks. Anna explains that this creature Dongxuan yesterday, and now she might die from a dog bite. She senses something coming and tells Prince Dusu that maybe she really will die here. But suddenly, the wolf stops for a moment. The rebel group steps in front of it. Shulin asks when the army started letting dogs roam the courtyard. The mustached guy says if this keeps up, they'll lose respect. The other two agree it's time to finish this. A guy in a bandana says it would be awesome to use this monster's skin for a coat. The other rebels cheer them on, urging them to go ahead and take down the beast. Our boy is pumped too, saying the rebel leaders have finally shown up. Xiao smiles as the guys start glowing and charge forward. They must be weak and about to get wrecked, right? Definitely, man. They get grabbed in a bear hug and slammed to the ground, exploding. Smoke rises, and when the crowd looks, only their little souls float out of their bodies. At that moment, Anna holds her stomach and can't stop laughing. But suddenly, Xiao glances to the side and asks what that person is doing there. At the same time, the wolf starts moving toward her. Realizing she can't escape, she grabs Xiao and throws her into Tui's arms, telling him he really needs to kiss that woman. Even if he didn't want to, he had no choice as she pushed his head into Shay's mouth. The boy sacrificed himself, truly a hero for the nation. What was he holding? Coconut water. Seriously, how's it leaking so much? And it just keeps coming. What's going on? He's using his hand. What's happening? Man, our guy is really making the most of this. Okay, Xia needs to go wild and find someone to hate. In this case, it's going to be Xiao. I'm curious to see what she'll do next. Suddenly, Xia's eyes start glowing purple while the little wolf looks confused by the drool. Energy starts pouring out of her, electricity sparking from the girl. She tells Fuggaris to take her man. Xiao celebrates that it worked and runs off, but she already spits out a purple energy ball. Xiao looks back, dodges, and lets the blast hit the wolf. Looks like it can't react in time and half the field blows up. Anna screams for Black Fang, but a second later, Xiao is right behind her. As Anna turns around, Xiao's already there, asking how she dares touch her man. She unleashes an explosion, but Black Fang jumps in, shouting he'll protect his master. Anna seems surprisingly chill with everything going on, and the explosion fills the area with smoke. When it clears, the poor creature is lying on the ground. Anna looks down, but Xiao has a knife to her neck, warning her to stay quiet. If she speaks, she'll lose her tongue. Meanwhile, our guy looks around and sees the rebel camp he needed is totally wrecked. He turns angrily at Anna, who is now getting scared. He's sure she won't help him take down the Chan Nation since she has no system window or status. Feeling his anger, she activates her power and begs him not to kill her, asking him to lower his sword. But Tu Yi knows this woman is too risky, and her power could get him killed before he finishes his mission, so he has to end this for the mission's sake. Suddenly, she mentions a magical girl with a bag of rice. Apparently, it's a line from an old anime called Detective Conan. Hearing that, 2D stops his attack, and everyone around him looks puzzled. He pulls the sword away from her head and asks if she's from another dimension too. She immediately drops to her knees, crying and saying yes. Turns out she's also a transmigrator who ended up in this world. He then tells Xiao not to kill her just yet. He needs to chat with her first to figure out what's going on. The poor girl is sobbing at his feet. Just then, Dongxun wakes up. Apparently, when she was standing before, the artist forgot she wasn't meant to be up. She stands up, sees the chaos, and asks what happened. Her eyes land on Linchuan and the woman next to him. Right away, she points at Anna, saying she deserves to die for controlling her like that. But Tu Yi tells her to hold on, because this girl might be useful to him. However, Dong Suan scolds him, saying he should stop wanting a woman from another race and that they need to deal with her. Anna, looking angry, begs for just a moment. Then she says it's fine. Since he saved her once, she'll let him do this. Our guy then asks for a soundproof room because he needs to have a serious talk. I thought Dongxun might get suspicious, but she just leaves, saying she'll set it up. Tu Yu wonders if this isn't jealousy. The scene shifts to the back of a cave. There's a table covered in blood, definitely not a welcoming sight. Seeing that, Yun-Ah shakes with fear about going into the room. Tug Yi thinks Dongxun misunderstood his intentions for this chat, but to be safe, he really needed to confirm her identity first. He says something like odd numbers change, but even numbers stay the same. She finishes his sentence saying to check the symbol's quadrant. Apparently, they're going to toss around anime quotes and references to confirm they're both transmigrators. After about 300 references, he wipes his forehead and says it looks like they're from the same world. Then he asks how she ended up here. She makes a strange face and says it's a weird story from a while back. She asked in a forum which dynasty people would want to transmigrate to the most. A user named Night Emperor started trash-talking her, claiming only a fool would want to go back in time. She got furious and kicked off a keyboard battle, but she accidentally spilled a drink on her keyboard and everything shut down. Next thing she knew, she was reincarnated as a bewildered baby. She thinks it sounds crazy, but Tuni realizes that Night Emperor was actually him. The weird part is she ended up in a baby's body. He grabs a little chair and asks how she figured out he was a transmigrator. Already sitting, she says it was because he got that reference when he finished her line about everyone being trash. The guy sits there, realizing he really messed up by letting that slip. She leans in and suggests that as fellow transmigrators, they should team up. He asks how and why, and she questions if he still sees himself as Li Jinyan. Then she sends a mental message, saying even as a high-ranking officer, he must be struggling to adjust. With his hand on his face, he admits that's pretty obvious. He used to spend his days gaming, drinking soda, and watching videos. But now the food is terrible, the hard bed is awful, and his whole life feels like torture. Apparently, during the mental message, she tried to activate her powers again. She feels confident, because it seems he hasn't realized he's being influenced. She asks if he got any special abilities since he transmigrated. He says no, all he has is a useless system. She notes that his transmigration hasn't gone as smoothly as hers. Then she asks if he wants Big Sis to help him out. Suddenly, she feels a bit confused. Just a moment ago, she was begging for mercy. So why is she acting like she's in charge now? She then asks if his goal is to take down the Shan Nation. He says yes, so what? Then she turns around and says she knew V wanted to destroy Qian and become king himself. But he thinks this woman is totally mistaken. He wants to destroy the Chan Nation and get out of this world. Who would want to stay in a place like this? That's when he figures out she's trying to control him with her power. Out of the blue, she starts taking off her shoe and says she might give him a dragon vein if he listens. Shaekon offers him a chance to kiss her foot, convinced he's never done anything like that before. She shoves her foot in his face, and he's boiling with rage. Out of nowhere, he covers her mouth and ties a bandana around it. Now she can't say a word, and he comments on her crazy talk about grabbing the dragon's head and becoming king. He says he's fed up with people trying to force their ideas on him since he came here. It's hard to believe that even another transmigrator doesn't get how he feels. Realizing her power isn't working, she silently begs him not to come any closer. He leans in and says he'll share what he really wants. She can't say anything, and honestly, I have no clue what happened next. Later, he bursts through the door, and she follows him out. He looks around and sees everyone waiting for him. The girl is gagged and totally red in the face. The three of them immediately think he's a shameless pervert. But Tianyuan seems touched, saying it makes sense this boy would be an emperor. Only someone who can attract with their own body could take down Dongshuan and even the plains demoness. Seeing their reactions, Tuyi tells them not to get the wrong idea. They're just there to seal her powers. Dongshuan reassures them, saying not to worry because her night with him lasted way longer. Before anyone could respond to that weird comment, a man steps up. He tells them the Rebel Alliance has regrouped and is ready to search for the dragon vein. Dongshuan says to let them go because she'll handle it herself. For some reason, Tuyi looks scared when he hears this. The scene shifts to the mountains where she's leading the troops. She seems to be using some power to find the veins, while our guy realizes the rebels are tough to deal with. They set up their base near the dragon vein, so anyone looking for it will end up being hunted by them. Suddenly, Dongshan stops, turns, and announces they've finally arrived. A strange energy moves toward them, revealing a barren area. Everything is dry and lifeless, with bones scattered everywhere. Tuyi wonders if this godforsaken spot is really where the dragon vein is. Then the rebels show up, asking if she's lost. How could the dragon vein be in such a dump? Suddenly, a golden blast goes off behind her, and something shoots up into the sky. Amid all this, a huge door glowing with light appears. Everyone instantly realizes this is the dragon vein. The rebels rush in, eager to get inside. As everyone charges ahead, Tucci cheers. He wanted them to take over the whole dragon vein to help him gain enough power to wipe out the Chan nation. Even the jokester is laughing. But Xiao wants to wipe them all out, saying the dragon vein is tied to the nation's fate, so the rebels can't take it. Chu Yi, however, isn't in a rush, so why is she so stressed? Shan Yuan says the emperor has unmatched wisdom. Those who go first always set off the traps. Chu Yi then raises his hand and says it's time to go in. With that, the group steps through the golden gates. The entrance behind them looks like it's closing. As they walk in, our boy is amazed, wondering who could build something like this. They stop in front of a door, hearing people scream that everything inside is theirs. Chen Yuan comments that it seems they've stumbled into a situation. They approach the door to see what's inside. The rebels are buried under piles of treasure. The guys were crying, saying with all this wealth, no one needs that so-called dragon treasure anymore. Xiao and Anna told them to check out other rooms. In one room, the beggar sect was fighting with the Shanghai Society over who would keep the weapons. An old man stared at a scroll, saying if he had read this as a kid, he would have been a martial arts genius. Everyone there was brawling over treasures, causing chaos. Dongshuan said that to earn the dragon vein's recognition, one must have the right character. Being tempted by such petty treasures showed a small-minded person. It was noted that this must be the dragon vein's first test, and they needed to stay alert. Tu Yi thought this test was a piece of cake for him. Dongshuan glanced at him, knowing he wouldn't have any issues since he had faced tougher choices before. But out of nowhere, she asked what he was holding. The boy looked like a merchant, juggling 2 bags, a pot on his head, and a sword. He casually replied that it was none of her concern. She complained, asking if he hadn't heard her question. This was a test from the dragon vein. Ignoring her, he walked into another room, confident there had to be better treasures there. Chen Yuan was puzzled why someone who ruled a nation and had seen so many treasures would be interested in this junk. Our boy thought that if this dragon vein test was to see if he was greedy, then he'd be the greediest around. He actually wanted to lose points, not gain them. Then he noticed several people lying dead on the floor and wondered if they had fought over this trash. As he looked at the treasures, he figured they weren't much better than national relics. The only thing that caught his eye was a cell phone. Later, he walked up to the group apologizing and saying he had a little gift. With a smile, He mentioned he couldn't bring everything he wanted, but would share a bit. Xiao picked up 2 daggers. Shan grabbed a sword that he quickly recognized had the dragon's mark. Dongshuan got emotional over an ancient technique scroll. Xiao was thrilled with her gift. Strangely, Anna got a weird whip. Tuyi told her to keep it because he planned to use it on her when he returned. Wow, this boy has a strange vibe going on. Dongshuan thought that at first, she felt an imperial presence from him, but now she questioned if she was mistaken. Suddenly, they felt a weird tremor, and rocks started falling from the ceiling. Those still in the treasure rooms got crushed. The whole place came crashing down as they screamed for help, dust everywhere. When they looked again, all the ruins were buried under rubble, with pools of blood below. Tuyu was heartbroken, realizing the rebel group he needed was falling apart so easily. Dongshuan noted they had come in with 158 people, but the first challenge had already taken over 100 lives. Out of nowhere, a voice rang out in the hall, announcing that the first challenge on the Imperial Path was all about possession. Tui glanced up and then at his arm, wondering if the system was talking to him, but it didn't seem like it was aimed directly at him. The voice proclaimed that those who were fixated on material wealth didn't have what it took to be an emperor and would be eliminated. Only those who held the world in their hearts and kept a cool head could move forward. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief at being safe. Tuyi grumbled, asking if this guy could just stop talking. Having stolen so many treasures, he thought he was about to get booted out. But then the voice said that only those who used treasures for the benefit of others deserved to rule this world. Suddenly, a light shone beneath Tu, and the voice declared that true greatness stood there. The poor guy was crushed, his face twisted in frustration. Chen Yuan was super excited, rushing over and saying, "This was amazing." He put a hand on Toyi's shoulder, claiming it was only natural for him to achieve this. But Toyi turned away, clearly not pleased. Anna watched, wondering how he could be so sharp as a transmigrator like her. Honestly, the kid's talent was scary. The others behind them were curious about who he was, and someone explained that he was a traitor from the Chan nation. Other rebels whispered that they could definitely feel the vibe of a true emperor coming from him. Everyone in the room was buzzing about him. 2D tried to step out of the glowing light, but it followed him. He shouted for the annoying system to turn off the spotlight because it was giving him a headache. But the system on his arm congratulated him for passing the Dragonvein's possession test. With that, he would gain the place's blessing in the Imperial Aura. Right away, he asked if this Imperial Aura would boost his strength. The system said no. The Imperial Aura was just for show, making him look like an emperor, nothing more. He felt completely let down to find out this so-called Imperial Aura was only for appearances. Then, the voice in the hall announced that since someone had gained the Imperial Aura, the next challenge would start now. On the Imperial Arena path, the upcoming test would be a strength challenge. Suddenly, everything went dark, and when 2D opened his eyes, he found himself in armor. That group was gathered in a tent, puzzled about what was going on. Someone shows up at the entrance and asks the marshal to kick off the military assembly. The aim of this test is to lead the Muyang army to take over the city of Shanggu. To the south on the map is the wide Lin Kang River. The Muyang army under Marshal Tuye is set up near this area. 21 miles to the north is the huge city of Songgu, which is their target. Songgu has 5,000 soldiers, while the entire Muyang army counts 20,000. Both sides have plenty of supplies, so this battle could drag on for months. Given the defenses in Songwu, winning will be really tough. A soldier kneeling down tells the marshal that over 5,000 troops are sick from a plague. Morale is low, and a quick decision is needed. Qianxuan and Tu Yi pause for a moment. Qianxuan turns to Tu Yi, saying this strength test seems to be about conquering the world. Since they're in the same tent, they probably belong to the same group. Tu Yi walks over to the table and comments that this feels like a tough game. Mission. Xiao mentions that following Prince Tusu, she learned a lot about military strategy. Usually, to take a well-defended city, you'd need 10 times its population. But not only do they lack the numbers, their army is hit hard by a plague. Still, Tsugi is excited, saying he loves really tough games, especially when losing seems likely. This situation gets him even more pumped, realizing that this brutal start must be the same for everyone. There's still a chance that if everyone does poorly, he could end up with the highest score. Tianyuan thinks Tu Yi might be considering using the plague to take Songgu. Unfortunately, it would be a really cruel method, which is why Tu Yi seems unsure. If that's the case, Tian Yun decides to play the villain and make the choice for him. He calls Tu Yi over and says he has a plan that could easily take Songgu. Meanwhile, in another part of the test, Dong-suen arrives at a camp and sees the plague spreading. She goes to a sick old man and uses her water-healing palm technique. The man starts to get up, saying he feels a lot better. He looks at her and says she must be an immortal among humans, sure that the marshal will lead them to victory. Other sick soldiers begin to rise, falling at her feet and begging for help. Dong-suen isn't sure what to do. She remembers being a kid, trying to help those who were hungry and struggling. She realizes she can't heal thousands all by herself. It's like trying to put out a blaze with just a glass of water. But right now, that's all she can manage. She tells everyone to stay calm, assuring them that as long as she's there, they'll be okay. Then she asks anyone with healing skills to step up and help the sick. Writing on a piece of paper, she gives out a prescription for the medicine ingredients. Then she gets back to healing the others. The scene changes to another part of the test. At a banquet table, Anna takes a bite of an apple and laughs at the thought of 0 soldiers attacking a city with only 5,000 defenders. Plus, a lot of their troops are sick. How could they possibly win? From across the table, someone says it's not that tough. It's Chen Saiming, who insists that capturing Songwoo will be a piece of cake. He leans in and asks when they plan to attack. Saiming then suggests infecting the 5,000 defenders. With a fast-spreading plague, the city would fall quickly. They could launch infected bodies over the walls. Coincidentally, this is the same plan Qian Yuan is sharing with Tu Ye. The tricky part would be aiming the bodies accurately into the city. Tu Ye thinks Qian Yuan is really ruthless. Even the King of Hell would be impressed by such a scheme. With his hand on his face, Tu Yi mutters that this is a brutal strategy, not something a wise leader would consider. Xian Yuan counters that there's no mercy in battle, but Tu Yi tells him to hold on. He claims he has a much better plan. A nearby soldier wonders what that could be. Tu Yi should know that to take a city like Sangwoo, you need 10 times the troops. But with what they have for this test, a direct attack is just a fantasy. Tu Yi admits the army's morale is way too low. He plans to pull back to the lake and wait for a better chance. Chao mutters to herself, expecting a solid plan. But all he wants to do is run away because he knows they can't win. Even worse, he's pretending he has some genius idea, but really he's just being a coward. Jian Yuan, hands on the table, tries to convince himself he still doesn't get what an emperor is planning. There's got to be more going on here. It's a shame his military smarts aren't enough to grasp what his majesty is thinking. Tu Yi raises his finger and says that besides retreating, they'll take all the infected soldiers with them, even the ones who can't walk. Cheng Yuan is shocked and says that's just not possible. The infected can't be saved, and taking them along would spread the plague and slow the army down. But 2D insists that no one gets left behind. That's how he treats his soldiers, and he asks if that answer works for Tianyuan. Shaking, Tianyuan just says the humble servant wouldn't dare object. Xiao watches silently. The scene shifts to the city of Songgu during the third test. An infected body is stuffed in a sack. A catapult is set up while terrified soldiers stand by. Even though he doesn't want to be part of this, the officer has to order the launch of the bodies. From the wall, Songwoo's army yells for everyone to take cover. But when they look up, they see dozens of corpses flying their way. In the distance, they hear soldiers shouting to throw the bodies back. Yet the commander of the attacking army tells them to keep firing. Bodies keep getting launched, and he's already dropped his sword. He can't go on. Those people were his soldiers for so long, but a hand on his shoulder pushes him to keep giving orders. It's Anna, reminding him if he forgot what he wanted most. After this war, he could go home and get married. Under her influence, he agrees, saying he can do this. He steps away as she wipes her sweat, annoyed by how tiring it is to deal with complaining soldiers. Simon praises her, saying the Sacred Maiden's power is really something. He can't believe Sangwoo will hold out much longer. On the first night, they started tossing bodies, and the soldiers on the walls threw them off. But within a day, they stopped, probably because the plague spread among them, leaving them scared. Manhua tells Oya to jump over the wall and unlock the gate from the inside. Aya quickly rushes up and easily climbs the wall. With only a few guards up top, Aya takes out the first two with no trouble. Moments later, the gate swings open. The army cheers, raising their weapons and praising the Sacred Maiden's skill. Some say this victory was too easy, but Aina gives him credit too. She lifts her arms and tells the troops to move forward. Excitedly, the army starts to cross the walls. Anna rides out on horseback, declaring it's time to take over the world. But as they enter, the city feels eerily quiet and deserted. She wonders what's happening and why the streets are empty. Even with the plague, it shouldn't be this still. There was only one reason it was this easy. Suddenly, something approaches from behind. Arrows start raining down on her army. Men scream they've been ambushed and shout to fall back. Looking back, she sees Sang's forces moving in. A man on horseback steps forward, saying they finally arrived. Nervously sweating, Ina asks who he is. He introduces himself as Liu Yu, a Songwu practitioner skilled in plague manipulation. The scene shifts back to Test 1. Lai Chanyuan, now wearing a mask, looks worn out. Soldiers ask if he's okay, and he tells them to keep moving the wounded. Suddenly, someone calls for Lord Lai. It's Sha, who reports something strange that needs attention. Apparently, this plague has magical properties. They suspect someone is causing the illness. His face darkens, and Sha confirms it before he can say anything. It looks like a plague sorcerer is messing with Songwu's troops. Chanyuan realizes they just dodged a major crisis. If they had attacked, they would have walked straight into a trap. Meanwhile, Xiao is listening closely. She wonders if Tu Yi had a hunch about this, which is why he wanted to pull back. Back with Anna, her army is getting wiped out. Their plan was doomed, since the plague wouldn't spread with a sorcerer around. She realizes she's walked right into his trap. From his horse, Liu Yu laughs at her silly idea of using corpses. Anna now gets that those bodies weren't a threat, which is why the city was abandoned so fast. Liu Yu admits she's clever and ruthless, and she might have pulled it off if he wasn't around. Anna smirks, saying if he dies, she still has a shot. She tells Evia to take him out now, but Liu Yu stands his ground. Anna looks back. Aya has collapsed on the ground, beaten. In front of them, Liu Yu releases a huge green dragon aura. Anna realizes her only choice is to run. She takes off, leaving the battlefield behind. Her soldiers call for the Sacred Maiden, but it's too late. She's already gone. But when she reaches the castle exit, it's blocked by crowds trying to escape. She quickly tells Oya to climb the walls. But then someone grabs Ina by the shoulder while others pull at her arms, begging for help. They cry that they don't want to die. Seeing this, Anna just thinks about how annoyingly clingy they are. She uses her power, commanding them to give their lives to protect her from that emperor. But everyone firmly says no, they never wanted to die for her. One soldier says his only wish is to go home and get married. She had deceived everyone and used magic on them. Out of nowhere, Anna coughs up blood from using her powers on so many people at once, pushing herself to the limit. She collapses, looking up as everyone comes to kill her, calling her a lying witch who deserves to die. The scene changes to people lost in a desert, crying for help and saying it hurts so much. Among them is a younger Dongxuan, claiming she can save everyone. All she needed was to get stronger. Back in her army test, Dongxuan walks into a room filled with infected corpses. She casts healing magic, and one guy feels better for a moment. But she starts to wear out, and the soldiers urge her to stop overexerting herself. If she keeps this up, she'll end up dead. But Dongxuan insists she's okay. Suddenly, she seems to get an idea. She stands up and admits they're right. She doesn't need to keep going. Soon, this will all come to an end. The city walls sound the alarm for an enemy cavalry attack. The soldiers panic as they spot a girl surrounded by lightning getting closer. It's Dongxuan, ready to take matters into her own hands. Liu Yu approaches and asks if she's the mage who dealt with his plague. She introduces herself, claiming her name will be remembered in this world. Liu Yu praises her, saying it's impressive to use precious magic to save mere ants, but she's infected too, making it all pointless. Dongxuan replies that it doesn't matter. In the end, beating him will be way easier than saving people. A skeleton appears behind Liu Yu, saying she has a heart that follows the true path. At least she's a worthy opponent for him to take seriously. Dong Sisuen spreads her arms and releases her aura, declaring this is what she came for. An explosion goes off, and suddenly she opens her eyes. She says she's about to win, but then wonders what this white aura around her is. Anna, next to her, asks if she finally woke up, commenting that Dongxuan must have been beaten badly to wake up like that. Both of them have finished the test. Dongxuan asks if Anna got eliminated that fast. They start clashing, with Anna joking that Liu Yu must have taken her down too. Dong Su-eun replies that if she hadn't been hit by the plague, she would have come out on top. But then she realizes that even if she had held back her strength, she still wouldn't have faced Liu Yu, so there was no way to win. No matter what choice she made, victory was out of reach. Looking back, Dong Su-eun sees Tu Yi still lying there. She knows his strength isn't much better than hers. So how is he still hanging in there? Even worse, he's got this silly grin on his face while he sleeps. This test feels impossible for her, but now she's curious about what he can really do. Meanwhile, across a wide river, Tu Yi's army is moving in. Standing amidst the wreckage, he wonders if Song's troops could be any more useless. He's dragging along his infected army and the injured, letting the enemy see their weakness and try to take advantage. Once they get across the river, defeating them will be impossible. Looking at the mountain, he mutters that he gave them a shot at winning, but they completely blew it. Chanyuan starts to figure out that 2D is waiting for the enemy to cross the river so he can hit them while they're vulnerable. Maybe bringing the sick and wounded was all part of the plan to lure the enemy in. But even an emperor can't see everything coming. The map showed a bridge, but it didn't say how weak it was. Chenyuan tells Tuye they can't waste any more time. They need to cross and get ready. But Tuyi thinks there's plenty of time since the enemy isn't attacking. He remembers telling the troops they would cross the river, but standing around isn't helping. He needs something to buy them more time. He glances at the soldiers near the bell and Chan Yuan, while Tianyuan insists they're running out of time. Tuyi goes to his soldiers, telling them that their injured brothers are still at risk, so he can't cross first. Chan Yuan wonders if bringing the wounded was a trap, or if he's missing something. Tu raises his hand and says that among them are brothers who are still hurt, the sick and the medics will cross first, while the generals guard the bridge. Right away, one soldier starts to cry. They approach Tuki, calling him the reincarnation of Buddha. Everyone is in tears, saying they are forever thankful, and that from now on, he has each of their lives in his hands. The rest of the healthy army says they feel safe with this plan, because they know if they ever get sick, they won't be left behind either. Meanwhile, others are in tears, saying this is what a real marshal looks like. Tuyi can't help but wonder why even these NPCs in this weird story are getting all emotional. With everyone crying around him, Tuyi has no choice but to let them think what they want. The soldiers start crossing the bridge, while he just watches. Then he hears footsteps behind him, and turns to see an army coming down from the mountain. Chenyuan shakes, saying they're out of time. He tells Tuyi to cross the river first, but Tuyi stands his ground, insisting the wounded go before him. Chenyuan hesitates for a second, then says it's time to show some loyalty. Some guys from his group come over to apologize. In that moment, Chenyuan knows what's about to happen. The soldiers grab him and shout to protect the marshal at all costs. Meanwhile, Xiao is somewhere else, asking where they are. Xiao is in a forest, wondering if this ambush plan will actually work. She turns to Xiao and says she's starting to get Tuyi. He's a pro at using traps. This time won't be any different. Xiao points out that Xiao once fell for a trick just like this. Embarrassed, Xiao admits it's kind of similar. This time, Tuyi is using the sick soldiers to draw the enemy army out from the walls. Xia asks why they're just sitting there. Xiao explains that Tuyi will probably wait to spring the ambush later. Their job is to hang back and strike as backup from outside. Once the enemy gets through the narrow mountain pass, they'll hit them from behind. If the enemy charges ahead, they'll fall right into Tuyi's trap. In the end, the enemy will be surrounded on both sides. Xiao smiles, saying that's how they'll score a big win. But suddenly, an origami bird flies over to Xiao. Xiao asks, what's going on? Xiao reports that a cavalry unit has moved down another road a mile away, meaning they set their ambush in the wrong spot. At that moment, the cavalry is already on the move. Shanyuan sees they're out of time to cross the river. The soldiers create a barrier in front of Tuyi, insisting they need to ensure the marshal gets away first. Tuyi silently curses the NPCs, thinking they should just give up already. He asks if they're ignoring his commands. He tells everyone to follow him across the river, but they stay put. He questions if they really plan to ignore a direct order. Still, they keep insisting, urging the marshal to go ahead. Tuyi realizes there's no escape from this situation. He slaps a soldier's hand and agrees. Qianyuan watches, thinking now the emperor can retreat safely while they hold off the enemies. But then he's shocked to see Tuyi draw his sword and cut the bridge. The soldiers look on in confusion. Tuyi admits that at first he was making choices that would lead to failure. But slowly, things started to shift. He knew this army was made of NPCs, and once he returned to reality, none of this would matter. But he was tired of using others' lives just to finish a mission. Chen Yuan is taken aback. Tuyi states that he knows these soldiers don't want to die in disgrace. Soku and the others will fight alongside him and face death with honor. Their Songwu army keeps pushing forward. Their orders were clear: take advantage of the enemy's retreat and crush them while they're feeling low. But what they encountered was something entirely different. A spear formation full of determination, led by Tuyi himself. The armies collide, and horses are thrown into the air. The enemy charges into the spear formation and gets shredded. Tuyi stands firm, watching the battle unfold. Enemies keep falling before them. Chen Yuan realizes he had been thinking too narrowly. Tuyi's attempt to cross the river was just a trick to lure the enemy into a reckless attack, letting him take control of the battlefield. One enemy stops looking puzzled, a golden glow shines. With a glowing face, Tu Yi boosts his soldiers' spirits. The Songwu army thought they were up against a losing team. Now with nowhere to run, Tu's army is fired up. It's do or die. He turned around the mindset of people who were sick and facing death. Tu Yi lifts his sword. Even he questions his own actions. From the beginning, he never aimed to win. But now he feels a strange flicker of hope. Someone is coming. It's Xiao and Xiao. She looks down the mountain and spots the enemy army below. She says it's the perfect moment, but Shu tells her to hold off. Xiao insists that Tu Yi's trap didn't work. They need to move fast before the whole army gets wiped out. But Xiao warns that the enemy has a strong mage and way more troops, so attacking now would be a death wish. Xia asks if Shou is scared, but Shou insists she's not. All Xiao needs to do is look at the battlefield. The Emperor's troops aren't losing, and she believes in him. Xiao didn't think Tu Yi would last this long, so she decides to play along for now. She agrees with Xiao, saying they'll wait. The mage's moan sends his remaining troops into battle. Their chance will come. The Songwu army keeps advancing, calling Tu Yi's soldiers diseased ghosts and yelling for them to die. The battlefield is a bloodbath, with someone dying every second. A soldier from Sangwu calls for a retreat to make room for the next wave, but as they pull back, they run into other troops. They realize they've been flanked. Tu Yi's cavalry shouts that even sick, they'll fight to the end. They charge at the Songwu forces, vowing that no one will escape. A shocked Sangwu officer can't believe how tough these dying soldiers are. He wonders where their leader is, accusing him of hiding and using his men as bait. But Tu Yi is right there and quickly takes his head off. He says he's done caring about winning or losing. He's just going to give it his all in this battle. At that moment, his combat power hits 95. Lifting his sword, he tells his soldiers to follow him. They charge ahead, pushing everyone to move forward. Meanwhile, Liu Yu stands with his troops, starting to feel anxious. Chao tells Shay to get ready because their time is coming. On his horse, Liu Yu realizes they're forcing him to send out his last troops. It's impressive. This is it for them. He raises his arms and mocks Tu Yi for being too young and swayed by the chaos of battle. His troops start moving forward, confident that even if the front line falls, he can retreat to Songwu and protect the city. But Liu Yu's face changes when he hears something behind him. Of course, it's Xiao leading a surprise attack. She shouts that this is their last chance to back Tu Yi. Liu Yu is shocked, not understanding why a hidden army was waiting behind him. Meanwhile, Tu Yi keeps cutting through enemies, focused only on winning. But the elite Songwu forces start closing in on him. Shan Yuan sees this as the enemy's secret weapon and worries Liu Yu might get hurt. A banner goes up but is quickly taken down. It's Xia launching fireballs into the battle. Shan Yuan watches in confusion as a warrior runs through the chaos. He hears someone yelling that the Songwu general has been killed and that surrendering will save their lives. A soldier stops, wondering when the commander's banner fell. Then a horse tramples him, and soldiers fall one after another. At that moment, the Songwu army loses its fighting spirit, and their morale collapses. With that, Tu Yi's forces claim a glorious victory. In the chaos, Liu Yu claims he's still alive. Standing on a pile of bodies, he insists he's not dead, but someone nearby says it doesn't matter. Shou aims her sword at him, declaring it's all over. Suddenly, a red glow starts to come from Liu Yu as he laughs. He admits he was really beaten in the end. Bursting with a green glow, he confesses he never saw such a clever plan coming. Tianyuan laughs and asks if even Xiao's ambush was part of Tu Yi's plan. From start to finish, it was a true work of art. But Tu Yi bluntly says he has no clue what Tianyuan means. Placing a hand on his chest, Tianyuan vows to understand the Emperor without needing words. Suddenly, Tu stops and looks at his shaking hand. He turns back and the whole army bursts into cheers, shouting that they finally won and can go home. Tu Yu watches his soldiers crying tears of joy and stands still, thinking they really earned that. Like this video to help Mamoru create more awesome content for his viewers, hit that cheeky little bell, and I'm out.